Chapter 5:36. After the system reiterated the rules, it projected the competition to the periphery. On the screen, several hundred foreign race contestants were standing in the area that represented their race's territory, making their preparations. Only Lone Tyrant was standing in that tiny area, unable to move at all. Upon seeing this, the surrounding encampments burst into laughter. You still have the face to participate in the tournament? You're just here to embarrass yourself. How can a lowly race like humans not be exterminated? The faces of the human soldiers were ashen. Their territory had been shrunk to the point where it couldn't get any smaller. Even so, they still wouldn't let the humans go. They wanted to exterminate them completely. After a short period of preparation, the tournament finally entered its countdown. The 10-second countdown seemed to stop every time the human felt as if time was ticking. It's about to begin. The fate of the human race is in your hands. The Kingdom Protector Autumn Phoenix's chest heaved. Even her deep breaths couldn't suppress her nervousness. The leaders around her were the same. Their bodies were stiff as they stared at the battlefield. The tournament had begun. Almost as soon as the tournament began, the scene that the humans had been most worried about happened. In the next moment, a group of players surrounded Lone Tyrant in the human territory. "Brat, I heard you're very arrogant." "Sorry, but I specialize in dealing with all kinds of disobedience. Our heavenly fiend race wants your treasure." "Solipsistic, you've been quite active lately. First at the Tower of Divine Punishment, then at the Dragon Necropolis. I didn't expect you to have the guts to come here." "Very well, the Titan race will take your head." "Brat, you killed one of our heavenly fate marshals at the border yesterday. Do you think you're very powerful? Today, I'll show you how much of a piece of trash you humans are. Wasn't this brat so arrogant that he even welcomed us? Come. Let's divide up the human territory first. You want to use the tournament to keep your worthless life? Sorry, but coming here is your biggest mistake." In an instant, Lu Chen was surrounded by a large group of people. Some of them didn't even have a border with the human territory, but they came to meet him. And there were even more people coming from the distance. Seeing this, Hong Yu of the Wood Mansion panicked. "What's going on? Why did they team up against us from the beginning?" The master of the Hall of Life and Death narrowed his eyes slightly. How can such a tiny place like ours attract so many covetous eyes? As soon as the competition started, those people came to our territory even before the other places started fighting. This is clearly something that they discussed in advance. Bu Nian let out a long sigh. Sure enough, their purpose of besieging the human race this time is to annihilate the entire human race. This time, they can seize the territory clearly first. Lunatic! Ba Shan's heart was burning with anxiety. However, there was nothing he could do to help. D***. Everyone is joining forces to deal with the madman. This is too much. At this moment, Cowherd Man clenched his fists and growled, "Shut up." As the second-to-last person here, who was only slightly higher than Bashan, Cowherd's shout immediately stunned all the sect masters and heavenly fate marshals present. We should have expected this to happen. I believe that with that stinky brat's thoughts, he would have thought that things would end up like this today. However, he still chose to participate in the martial arts competition. Now is not the time for us to complain. The human race has always been weak, so it is destined to be difficult now. The only thing we can do is to believe in that brat. Cowherd Man's eyes were fixed on the trapped red figure. Perhaps you only know that he has heaven-defying strength. However, after interacting with that stinky brat for a few months, I've seen the reason behind his strength. Dongfang Ji couldn't help but ask curiously, "What reason?" For a moment, the past flashed before his eyes. When his physical body was 80% damaged and he could no longer walk, he returned to the City of Exiles and saved Cowherd Man with an arrow. Facing the unsolvable astral wind, when he was about to give up, he still pondered deeply and finally found a way to break it. Facing the strongest of the ancient dragon race, the nine-clawed dragon emperor, he fought until he was bleeding and killed him in a desperate situation. He had once said that he had a younger sister. He would not allow his sister to come to the third heaven and be discriminated against and bullied by other races. He had also said that he would definitely go to a higher heaven because he had to find the answer there. He can't be considered a good person, Cowherd Man suddenly said. However, he has never lost himself. He has people he wants to protect and answers he wants to find. In order to become stronger, he can endure pain that ordinary people can't. His determination is unparalleled. He has defeated experts that you can't imagine and has also surpassed himself. This is the most frightening part about him. Therefore, Cowherd Man took a deep breath and turned to look at the crowd. There was an unprecedented determination in his eyes. If there is anyone who can save the human race, it can only be that stinky brat. He will bring back the glory and dignity of the human race. Everyone's hearts suddenly trembled. As the person who had followed Solipsistic for the longest time, Cowherd Man's words were very convincing. The Hall Master of the Hall of Life narrowed his eyes. Cowherd Man, the super expert you speak of, is? The Emperor of the ancient dragon race, the nine-winged, nine-clawed black dragon. Cowherd Man laughed coldly. The demon race said that he stole their treasure? What a joke! Where did they put the treasure? Did they have the ability to take it? They couldn't even pass through the astral wind belt. Instantly, everyone present couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Ancient? You mean the Emperor of the ancient dragon race? No, that's impossible. That only exists in legends. Do I have to lie to you? Where do you think you can get a piece of equipment like the limitless sword so easily? Cowherd Man's rhetorical question was like a sharp sword stabbing into everyone's hearts. They had overlooked a problem. Dongfang Ji pondered for a moment and suddenly looked up at Cowherd Man. Elder Coward, you said that he has surpassed himself. Could it be? Cowherd Man smiled. Jingguang Temple should have the most right to speak on this point. Surpassing oneself was definitely not just a matter of words. Coincidentally, there was an anomaly in the Mirror World Instance Dungeon. He cleared the Mirror World Instance Dungeon? Bunyan's eyes widened. That guy who had been leisurely the entire time had already completed this impossible task? Heaven's Punishment Tower, Dragon Necropolis, Mirror World. These were three extremely dangerous places. Solipsistic had only been in the third heaven for a few months and had already cleared them all. But that guy had never mentioned it. At this moment, there was a burst of wild laughter in the hall. I, Solipsistic, will naturally keep my word. When I say I welcome you, I welcome all of you. You want my equipment? Lu Chen raised one hand and a black and white sword was drawn inch by inch from the void. The limitless sword was drawn out like a king descending to the world. Thousands of weapons trembled. What grade of weapon is this? Does it have a weapon spirit? Impossible, immortal weapons don't have weapon spirits. Is it the Heaven's Punishment Tower or the Dragon Necropolis? It actually decreased the attributes of my soul-devouring, heart-destroying spear. Lu Chen raised his chin slightly. We humans are very hospitable, so I'll give you all a chance. All of you, come at me together. Chapter 537. The moment Lu Chen's words came out, the first ones to have a heart attack were those from the human race. Cowherd had just been talking about how strong this fellow was. Originally, it was quite encouraging, but in the end, Lu Chen's words were like a stick to their heads. Believe him? Believe my ass. That fellow was just fighting properly, but he actually wanted to challenge a whole group of them. Cowherd, what is Brother Du Quang doing? Cowherd suddenly thought of something. He had forgotten to mention that Brat's greatest characteristic. Crazy. Others were arrogant, but he was even more arrogant. Taking turns to fight? That was impossible. If they wanted to fight, then they would fight together. Arrogant to the extreme. Many people in the crowd roared, wanting to die is easy. We want to divide up your human race's territory and clear you parasites out of the third celestial layer. From now on, there will be no more humans in the Jiutian War. Lu Chen coldly snorted, so much nonsense. Anyone with such thoughts counts. This daddy doesn't care if there's a limit to the number of people. All of you attack together. The situation on the Fiend God battlefield suddenly changed. Many of the foreign races were enraged by Lu Chen. 4 to 500 of their strongest experts had already surrounded Lu Qin. The core members of the various races all looked on as if they were waiting to watch a good show. I was worried that I would need several rounds to deal with that solipsistic, but I didn't expect him to have no brains at all. He probably thinks that those who dare to fight are ordinary Heaven's Mandate realm experts. He will pay the price for his arrogance. Unfortunately, the price will be his entire race. One person against 400 peak Heaven's Mandate realm experts? I want to see how many times he'll die. In the center of the battlefield, these peak Heaven's Mandate realm experts had already displayed what it meant to be strong. When the 400 Heaven's Mandate realm experts displayed their moves, it caused the heavens and earth to change color. Strong winds were blowing everywhere, and the surrounding clouds were pressing down on the top of their heads, becoming thicker and thicker, forming thunderclouds. Suddenly, a heavy rain began to fall. On the battlefield, sand and stones flew everywhere, mixing with the rain and making the world hazy. Shocking beasts were roaring in that chaotic world. Their bodies were blurry and enormous in the sandstorm. Based on their figures, people could see that all kinds of rare battle pets had gathered there. Needless to say, there were countless elemental experts here. Wind, fire, thunder, lightning, metal, wood, water, fire, earth. There were also all kinds of professions. Many people even had multiple professions, but they were temporarily hiding. That's too terrifying. Hundreds of heavenly fate marshals of the foreign races unleashed their power at the same time, creating such a huge commotion, causing a huge storm. Pulling Mountain covered his face with his hands, blocking the flying gravel. Just the excess energy released is already unbearable, let alone their common target. Buddha's spirit shield. A professional monk stood in front of everyone and shielded them with an air shield. Solipsistic is too arrogant. There is no lack of super experts among those fellows. They can even enter level for a long time ago. To challenge everyone without distinguishing the target, that's too reckless. On the battlefield, Lu Qin was already surrounded by many experts. He was in the center of the storm, and the surrounding wind ruthlessly lifted his red robe and black hair. From afar, he was like a dancing flame in the storm. But strangely enough, the black and white fog around him was still slowly lingering in the storm and was not affected at all. Solipsistic, you are wanted by all races. Today we can end this matter. Everyone, according to the rules, the treasure will belong to whoever can kill him. With 2 treasures, Lu Qin had already become Tang Sang's meat. Countless flying swords were already erected, divine beast battle pets were eager to try, and long-range bows and arrows were nocked. At that moment, Lu Qin raised his head. His eyes had become different, emitting a faint green aura. With a cold snort, Lu Qin smirked. You are not worthy. 6 divine transformations. Thunder element conversion. With a boom, a golden light burst out from Lu Qin's body. A bolt of lightning in the sky directly struck the Wuji sword, and the entire sword was suddenly charged, crackling. The surrounding experts couldn't help but stop what they were doing. This is the 9 transformations of gods and demons? It really is the 9 transformations of gods and demons. The forbidden Jiutian technique. He has already mastered the 6th level. No wonder he is so arrogant. We have to be careful this time. The 9 transformations of gods and demons is the number 1 forbidden technique in the Jiutian. It must not be underestimated. If he wants to destroy the human race, he must be killed. So what if he has the 9 transformations of gods and demons? He is just a human, and his talent is not as good as ours. Besides, he has only mastered 1 forbidden technique. It is impossible to say that he is stronger than us with just 1 forbidden technique. That's right, strength has never been measured simply by the height of one's cultivation technique. Kill this person and get 2 treasures, and even the 9 transformations of gods and demons. I am getting more and more impatient. In the meantime, Lu Qin summoned his battle pets. 6 enormous creatures appeared next to him. The furball raised its head and roared, shocking the world. The shape of the inferior originator was blurred. It was the most powerful form when it didn't have a fixed shape. There were also 4 other divine beasts. Chaos, Taudai, Azure Dragon, and Black Dragon. For adult divine beasts. Roar. 2 dragon roars shook the world. The Azure Dragon and the Black Flame Dragon Emperor roared at the 100 battle pets on the opposite side, as if they were telling them which divine beast was the noblest. What? Adult ultimate divine beasts? Someone in the crowd looked at the 2 divine beasts in shock. It was well known that divine beasts were terrifying because of their growth potential. Young divine beasts might only be able to kill low-level monsters such as silver wolves, but young divine beasts could fight against a player at the 3rd level of the celestial realm. Adult divine beasts would have even greater combat abilities. To put it bluntly, in Lu Chen's army of divine beasts, the Azure Dragon and the Black Dragon Emperor were as strong as the Furball. Even Chaos and Taotai weren't any weaker than the inferior originator. They've evolved to adulthood? That requires unimaginable special essences and beast cores. And he's raising 4 of them at once? Wait, an army of divine beasts. Is he the god of death from the trial battlefield? The god of death was quite famous for his army of divine beasts that had slaughtered many species. In that case, let's settle the old and new accounts together. Let's not fight among ourselves for now. Let's kill this guy first and then settle our disputes later. The 6 transformations of gods and devils can't be underestimated. Come out of the seal. Lu Chen had used the 6 transformations of gods and had adult divine beasts next to him. None of the experts dared to underestimate Lu Chen. They all used their best skills. Before they really attacked, Lu Chen had already been inflicted with a tremendous number of negative statuses. This is too exaggerated. I've never seen such a horrifying battle. I'm afraid that this battle will be a shocking one at the 3rd level of the celestial realm. Barrier skills are the dividing line between experts and top experts. Those who can come here are all top experts of their species. How can they call themselves top experts if they don't have barrier skills? North Snow frowned. Brother Du Kuang, the 6 transformations of gods and demons are indeed powerful, but can you break hundreds of barriers? The battle had only started for a few seconds, and the 2 sides hadn't even made a move yet. It could only be regarded as a probing stage at best. But already, everyone was so nervous that they couldn't breathe. Chapter 5:38. In the next second, Harry Ball led the sprites toward the army of divine beasts. Bloodline Bond. Harry Ball activated his skill and took the lead to rush into the army of divine beasts. The black and green dragons opened a path for him. The battle between the divine beasts was particularly fierce, especially when the sky-swallowing beasts were known for their cruelty. Red flames, black flames, ice, fire, and wind spirits, blood, and roars filled the battlefield. However, the battlefield of divine beasts was not the focus of this battle. The real focus was still on the man in red in the middle of the battlefield of divine beasts. Kill him! A roar like a bolt from the blue rang out. Big Dipper Sword Art, Falling Stars. Furious Sword Art, Third Slash of Sorrow. Countless flying swords, the lowest of which was at the immortal level, shot toward the red figure in the middle. Buddhist Seal Attack Change, Buddha Slaughters the Heavens, Instant Enlightenment. True 9 Words Mantra, Array Word Soul Destruction Rune. Cold Poison Bone Shattering Needles, Chaotic Rain. Taoist Talismans, Dharma Seals, Poisonous Weapons, and Hidden Weapons all came at him. In the distance, countless flying arrows and firearms came at him in an instant. Paralysis Missile. Rapid Illusionary Arrow, 21 consecutive shots. Countless skills from the divine beasts bombarded the red figure in a frenzy. Originally, there were countless barriers around him, and Lu Chen had so many negative statuses on him that they could not see them clearly. At this moment, a huge amount of damage floated above Lu Chen's head. The words were in different colors, indicating that the number of damage attributes was beyond people's imagination. Suoweng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. That kid could kill the 9-clawed black dragon, but the combined power of these divine beasts was too amazing. Even the 9-clawed dragon emperor could not withstand it. Although their barriers were not as powerful as those in the forbidden land of the dragon clan, 400 of them could almost destroy Lu Qin. My heavens, it's over. This attack can't be blocked by anyone. The hearts of the human spectators had already turned cold. There are too many types of attacks, and with so many negative statuses in the barriers, I'm afraid even an immortal can't withstand it. Lady May was not in the mood to care about other things, but she felt a sharp pain in her hand. She came back to her senses and looked at her hands. Frost Dance's nails had already sunk deep into her palms. Shuangwu. Mainyang couldn't bear to wake Shuangwu up. She was so nervous that she had forgotten about her existence. With 400 layers of enchantments, Lu Qin, who was as strong as a god level 6, was still unable to withstand a single blow. His maximum HP was reduced from 20 million to only 4 million. After a large amount of damage appeared above his head, he was instantly cleared. Heavily injured, Lu Qin spat out a mouthful of blood, his body trembling. This kind of fatal blow, under the condition of full pain, as long as one was still human, it would be difficult to bear. Moreover, this included a large number of physical attack skills. That brat still has 2 lives. Is he waiting to be revived? Ba Shan asked nervously. Dongfang Ji frowned deeply. If he was in such an environment, would it be possible for him to win? There was probably no chance at all. In the principle of overlaying barriers, if there were more barriers, the effects of the same attribute would be weakened. The more barriers there were, the weaker the effects of the same attribute would be. In other words, even if these 400 barriers had the effect of reducing one's maximum HP by 10% each, after 400 barriers were overlaid, it would not be as simple as 4,000%. It might only be 80 to 90%. This was also the reason why Lu Qin was left with 4 million HP despite having 20 million HP. Even so, the terrifying thing about 400 barriers was that they had reduced Lu Qin's strength in all aspects. Regardless of whether it was his attributes, attack, speed, skill cooldown, resistance, etc., they were all greatly reduced. Even if some debuffs could be removed after being revived, as long as he was revived, he would still exist within the barrier. Then, when he was revived, he would still be affected by the barrier. This was the strength of the barrier. As long as he was within the barrier, he would be affected. However, Dongfang Ji did not tell Ba Shan this news. If he did, that guy would probably collapse. Then, he would leave him with some hope. However, Kingdom Protector Qiufeng suddenly exclaimed, Wait, why isn't that guy dead? Everyone quickly turned their attention to the battlefield. Solipsistic's HP was already as black as it could get. However, upon closer inspection, they found that he had less than 100 HP left. 100 HP was almost negligible compared to 4 million HP. However, he only had 100 HP left. And this 100 HP was the difference between being dead and not being dead. A passive skill to protect the owner? Continue attacking. The heavenly demon elites quickly thought of this possibility and immediately took the corresponding measures. After all, experts were experienced and knowledgeable. It was not as if they had never seen skills to protect their owner before. Unfortunately, they were mistaken. Lu Qin, who had not made a move all this time, finally raised his head. The green light in his eyes was about to burst out of his body. Every time his head moved, a green mark would be left on the side of his eyes. Sorry, this is not a skill to protect your owner. This is your death knell. Okay, now it's my turn. After saying that, Lu Qin grabbed Ultimate Sword. Celestial Demon Mixed Element Barrier. Celestial Demon Walk. Dragon's Blood Boil. I will grant you relief. Infinite Grace Release. Suddenly, the red figure disappeared from the spot. Immediately after, at the far end of the battlefield, an archer screamed. When everyone turned to look at the source of the sound, they saw that the archer's 32 mHP had been cleared twice. Although it was done twice, and he had activated the Guardian's passive skill to protect his owner in one of the 2 times, he still could not hold on for more than a second and was instantly killed. With a crisp sound, a barrier was shattered in the battlefield. Even the heavenly fate of the mutated race could not be killed instantly. This guy has a barrier too? North Snow Lingjuan's eyes widened. During the battle with North Snow Gufei, He had not used this skill. Dongfang Ji narrowed his eyes slightly. Solipsistic's combat power is the most terrifying when he is in God's sixth form and dragon's blood boil. The combination of Celestial Demon Infinite Sword and Grace Release is unbeatable, but he still has a barrier. This guy, he didn't even use 1/10 of his strength when he fought me. How is that possible? Inside my barrier, low-level displacement should be ineffective. A demigod expert glared angrily. As one of the top experts here, the quality of his barrier was extremely high. He was confident that his barrier could suppress 95% of the people here. However, Solipsistic was not affected by his barrier and could still use displacement as usual. When everyone saw the effects of the Celestial Demon Mixed Element Barrier, everyone's expression changed. Time-type barrier. Within the barrier, the flow of time is reduced by 50%, the enemy's speed is increased by 50%, the damage of all Heavenly Might attacks is increased by 50%, and damage reduction is ignored. This barrier is a moving barrier with the caster as the center. The radius of effect is 1,500 meters. Time-type barrier. This is an origin-type barrier. When the nine-clawed dragon emperor saw Lu Chen take the infinite sword and ran away, it could be seen that the quality of the Celestial Demon Mixed Element Barrier was much higher than the dragon's Forbidden Land. However, these people's barriers were not as good as the dragon's Forbidden Land. The extent to which they could affect Lu Chen was reduced to the minimum. This guy knows that he can't resist everyone's barriers and has been waiting for the Celestial Demon Mixed Element Barrier. Cowherd suddenly understood. Brat, you're still so calm. After killing one person in an instant, no one even saw Solipsistic's figure until a talisman master nearby suddenly burst out with a protective light. The 20 million durability Heaven and Earth shield was instantly destroyed. After losing his protection, the talisman master's health and defense were even lower than a sword rider's. He was directly cut in half and died in the blink of an eye. Reincarnation. That guy still had a trick up his sleeve, but Lu Chen did not care and directly locked onto the next target. A sword rider not far away was unlucky. Before he could see the person, that person's health bar disappeared. -14. 33 million. This number was not an accurate damage value, but the upper limit of the Cerberus sword rider's health. All 6 of his arms were cut off. This is physical damage. North Snow could not remain calm. So, Solipsistic Relief was a skill that dealt physical damage. If Solipsistic Relief had not been merciful, Lonely Fly would have been crippled. No wonder he was not afraid of reviving. After his physical body was heavily damaged, he could not recover even if he revived. Lu Chen had experienced this point firsthand. No one could lock onto Solipsistic Relief. He was like an untraceable ghost, shuttling back and forth among the 400-strong players. Wherever he went, there was only relief. In 15 seconds, 112 strong players, regardless of race, were unable to fight back. They were instantly killed. Chapter 539. The moment the chaotic celestial demon barrier ended, everyone realized that they were already in the middle of a massive chessboard. The Heavenly Might Chess Formation. One of the Heavenly Fiend marshals frowned. His subordinates had once reported to him about the battle with Solipsistic. At the time, Solipsistic had already been heavily injured, but he had still managed to kill 300 of his subordinates. He had even set up the Heavenly Might Chess Formation in the midst of his rapid killing spree, trapping him in the middle and severely injuring him. At first, he did not believe that anyone could maintain such a high level of composure under such circumstances, concealing the formation so well. But now he believed it. That fellow had already thought of what to do next before he attacked. 112 people had been instantly killed in less than 15 seconds, but he had set up such a powerful formation. This fellow plans before he acts. He's ruthless and leaves no room for negotiation. Although the Heavenly Might Chess Formation was only an Earth-class formation, it contained 4 high-grade Earth-class formations. It would not be an exaggeration to call it a Heaven-class formation. Inside the Heavenly Might Chess Formation, unless the formation was broken, the chess souls would quickly revert to human form even if they were killed. It could be said that there was no end to killing them. Of course, Lu Chen was not so naive as to use the Heavenly Might chess formation to directly kill the remaining 300 top-level Heavenly Fate Marshals. His goal was to temporarily trap them. Inside the chess formation, everyone heard a series of explosions outside. Oh no, my Dark North barrier has been broken by him. My Immortal Trace barrier as well. He wants to trap us. Focus on breaking the barrier. If not for the barrier restraining that freak, that fellow will be even harder to kill. Quick, work together to break the formation. The Heavenly Fate Marshals were very fast in breaking the formation. In just 2 to 3 minutes, all 4 major formations were broken. Next was the main formation. Quick, only the main formation is left. Break through from all sides. At that moment, the Heavenly Might chess formation suddenly disappeared on its own. All the chess souls slowly retreated until they disappeared. After the Heavenly Might chess formation disappeared, everyone saw that there was already someone waiting for them outside. Lu Chen hovered in midair, his red robes fluttering in the wind and rain. His eyes emitted a green light as the black and white Taiji mist slowly flowed from the limitless sword in his hand. Lone Tyrant's lips curled up slightly as he said, "You guys are a little slow." The group of Heaven's Fate furiously glared at Lu Chen. "Solipsistic, what are you being so arrogant for? Don't think that you're invincible." Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "Blood Sacrifice Soul Broiling Formation." Peak Heaven's Mandate Realm cultivators weren't incompetent. While they were breaking the formation, a Talisman Master had also finished setting it up. Generally, techniques that used blood sacrifice as a prefix would require the user to burn a portion of their blood. Similarly, the benefits of using blood in exchange were also very considerable. The power of blood sacrifice techniques was also stronger than those of the same level. The blood sacrifice shield and blood sacrifice soul pole were the same. As for the blood sacrifice soul incineration array, it was even more special. Lu Chen could clearly see the HP of nearly 300 Fate of Heaven's Mandate players drop at the same time. The Kingdom Protector Autumn Phoenix said in shock, "This is sacrificing one's body and blood essence? This is too exaggerated." The blood essence of 300 Heaven's Mandate cultivators. My God, this array is probably a terrifying existence even in the 4th heavenly layer. Many of these people already have the strength to head to the 4th heavenly layer. In the 3rd heavenly layer, the Heaven Connecting Tower isn't too difficult. The main point of the competition is the competition for resources from the various races. Then hold on. When Mountain Strength heard the discussions of these big shots, he became even more worried for Lu Chen. To set up this array at the cost of damaging one's body, what kind of terrifying thing was this madman facing? At this moment, a debuff appeared on Lu Chen's body. Blood Curse causes the blood in the body to go into chaos. Everyone moves a certain distance and loses a corresponding amount of HP. The further one moves, the greater the amount of HP lost. At the same time, it causes physical damage. Just by looking at this description, one could already tell how terrifying the Blood Curse Soul Incineration Array was. It didn't prohibit any movement skills, but directly dealt damage. For example, Lu Chen's Bestowment Extrication could deal 10 times the damage while teleporting, and it was guaranteed to be a critical hit. Under the Blood Curse, he could continue to use Bestowment Extrication. However, while using it, the Blood Curse would reduce his HP according to the distance he moved. Even if no one could lock onto him, he still couldn't escape the effects of the Blood Curse. Perhaps after using Bestowment Extrication, Lu Chen would lose too much blood. In addition, the condition of inflicting equal physical damage made the idea of using Resurrection to remove the effects completely useless. After being hit, Lu Chen didn't dare to move casually. Haha, Solipsistic, use Bestowment Extrication again. Run again. Now you can only stand there and let us hit you. How powerful is the array activated with 300 Heaven's Mandate Cultivator's blood essence? After being hit by the Blood Curse, you're like a fish on a chopping block. The Blood Curse is specially made to counter your Bestowment Extrication. Kid, remember, in this Jiutian, there is no strongest technique. Everything counters each other. No matter how strong you are, you can't be the strongest. 9 transformations of the demonic god, limitless sword, and the human race, you can't protect any of them. Kill him. There were indeed hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the top heaven's mandate cultivators. There were even people who could use such a perverted array like blood sacrifice soul. However, Lu Chen only smiled, as expected of peak 3rd heavenly layer heaven's mandate cultivators. I really underestimated you. But you're right. In the Jiutian, everything counters each other. So, the blood curse isn't invincible. With that, Lu Chen flipped his hand and an illusory bow appeared in his hand. I don't only need close combat to kill. Lu Chen's green eyes swept across the crowd. Doppelganger. Demon King intent. Refresh. Doppelganger. More than 30 doppelgangers stood side by side, each holding an abyssal dragon crystal bow. Flash. Boom boom boom. A row of arrows flew in front of Lu Chen, piercing through the raindrops and disappearing in an instant. In the next second, they were already in front of the heaven's mandate cultivators. It's Permetha. Dragon armor shield. One of the heaven's mandate cultivators recognized Lu Chen's archery. The arrows only appeared when they were shot and right before they hit the target. There was no trajectory to follow. It was the Permetha archery that was most revered by archers. This guy's legendary class is a mystery. He's good at close combat and has a powerful battle pet. At the same time, he's also good at long-range attacks. Quick, defend. These arrows can't be avoided. The damage and critical hit are extremely high. The Heaven's Mandate 8 immortals used their various abilities to block the arrow rain. Not good, my shield's durability is dropping too fast. It's forcing him to move and activate the blood curse. Earth Vine Bind. The ground where Lu Chen was standing suddenly bulged up. A huge plant vine that looked like an octopus's tentacle crazily grew upwards. You want to stand still and attack? You've really underestimated the blood sacrifice soul sacrifice array. The blood clan expert that had activated the blood sacrifice soul sacrifice array coldly snorted. Blood sacrifice soul sacrifice array, blood demon of 8 directions. From 8 directions, 8 huge red claws appeared out of thin air and grabbed at Lu Chen at the same time. Help me block the arrows. I'll block his retreat. Mystic Ice Water Sword, piercing skull. I'll make sure you have no way out. The crystal divine sword in his hand turned into countless light spots and merged with the rain falling from the sky. In an instant, the raindrops solidified into sharp icicles and tilted toward Lu Chen. These were no longer ordinary icicles. Each icicle contained a fatal clone of the divine sword. Lu Chen's Qian and Kuan avatars had been completely surrounded. To make matters worse, he was under the effect of the blood curse and couldn't move. Haha, solipsistic, you're dead for sure this time. Lu Chen frowned slightly and couldn't help but curse. Damn it. It seemed that he had no choice but to use that move, 6 demonic transformations. After learning the 6 demonic transformations, Lu Chen had mostly used the 6 demonic transformations. After all, for most situations, grace release was enough. But this time, he used the 6 demonic transformations for the first time. Chapter 540. The 6 devil transformations required a non-human form to enter, and this non-human form was Lu Chen's new appearance. Lu Chen's face deformed and sunk in until the skin fell off. From the crack in the skin behind him, a child crawled out. This child was thin and small, and his head was very big. There was a pair of devil horns on his forehead, and a pair of snow-white furry fox ears were particularly eye-catching. A pair of big eyes emitted even more dense green smoke, and the fox tail behind him unconsciously swayed. Damn, what is this thing? Mountain Strength almost fell down. In the crowd watching from afar, Shuangwu widened her eyes and looked at the child in the image in disbelief. Is this madman's real body? It's a child? I want to hug him. It's so evil and cute. Mei Nyang's eyes unconsciously revealed a doting look, but she quickly reacted. Now was not the time to hug him. However, can this little guy deal with the current desperate situation? It's making people even more worried. Lu Chen was facing a desperate situation now. He could not move and was being attacked from all sides. Ah, I knew you were a little bastard who was still wet behind the ears. Sure enough. Transformation? Can you please transform into something more powerful? In the end, you turned into a little bastard. This is a hybrid between a human and a devil. Looks like you're already at your wit's end. Did you transform into a child to beg us to show mercy? Lu Chen, who was in the evil child state, activated the sixth devil state again. His body immediately emitted a black fog, and he narrowed his eyes slightly. Beg you to show mercy? Looks like you don't know that you're already dead. The 6 devil transformations was the same as the 6 god transformations. Other than greatly increasing attributes, it also gave an additional skill. Eternal Night. The limitless sword suddenly shot towards the sky. The limitless sword went against the sky and pierced through the thick thunderclouds in the sky. A large hole was instantly pierced through the black clouds. It was as if a hole had been pierced through the sky. A large gap was suddenly torn open in the torrential rain. However, before the sun could even penetrate the clouds, the world became as dark as night. When the darkness descended, the madly growing vines were suddenly attacked from all directions and instantly turned into wreckage. The octagonal ghost claw instantly dissipated. A few howls of unknown origin came from behind the ghost claw, as if they were the howls of the strange creatures hidden in the blood-sacrifice soul-burning array. Heaven and earth were covered in darkness. The dark night was his weapon, and it could destroy all techniques that were inferior to this move. At the same time, debuffs appeared on the 300 heavenly fate realm experts on the ground. Eternal Night. When the Lord of the Night descends, everything under the cover of the night becomes the Lord's territory, and everything on the shores of the night becomes the Lord's subjects. Within the Evernight world, only I am reigning supreme. In the night state, all attacks that were cast with the help of God summons would lose their effect. They would not be able to distinguish directions, and their displacement skills would lose their effect. When attacking the Night Master, the preparation time of their skills would be increased by 100%. The evil child was suspended in midair. His robes were fluttering in the wind, and his hair was flying. The evil child's face was even more terrifying. So cute? At this point, no one could associate the Night Monarch with this term. It was as if he was the ruler of the world, ruling over the world. He also gained a new status. Night Devil, Demon Blood Flow. Within the Eternal Night Barrier, the blood lost by the Night Devil will flow back into the Night Devil's body. The demon blood lost will be baptized by the night, and after flowing back, it will provide additional attack power. Seeing this effect, Dongfang Ji sucked in a breath of cold air. It's actually a barrier-type skill. This guy has 2 barriers. And they're so strong. North Snow Lord frowned. This demon blood flow effect, does it mean that if we can't kill that guy within the Eternal Night Barrier, he will never die? Everyone was mulling over the description in their minds. After thinking about it carefully, they realized that it was indeed the case. The blood lost would flow back into the Night Devil's body. Although it could not prevent the Night Devil from losing blood, the problem was that he would flow back as much blood as he lost. This meant that he would recover as much blood as he lost. Perhaps the only weakness was that it did not really prevent the solipsistic from losing blood. If it was an attack that could instantly kill him, then the demon blood flow effect would be over before it could flow back. However, the problem was how to instantly kill the solipsistic. Or within the Eternal Night Barrier. Based on everyone's understanding of the solipsistic, he had at least 2 life-saving skills in his hands. The ghost pet's possession to protect its master, and the Buddha's salvation to the common people. Furthermore, he was still alive and had 2 more chances to be reborn. Heavens, no wonder that guy wasn't nervous at all. This barrier is simply invincible. He waited until now to use this barrier. Just how good is he at hiding? How many trump cards does he still have? Under the Eternal Night, I am the only one. With demon blood flow, not only will he not die, he will become stronger as he fights. This guy, heavens, he's ridiculously strong. The 6 transformations of gods and demons is worthy of being the number 1 forbidden skill in the Jutian. This is too much, however, Cowherd did not think it was too much at all. Those heavenly fate all have barriers. With that kid's strength, he only has a barrier that activates when he's on the verge of death. This is abnormal in itself. I think it's more normal for him to have a barrier like the eternal night. After all, his own people would think from Lu Chen's point of view. Mountain pulling strength finally let out a sigh of relief. This is great. With the night demon's effect, it's perfect to counter the blood sacrifice. That guy was right. Within the Jyotian, everything counters each other. Within the eternal night, I am the only one. These words were enough to explain how terrifying the eternal night was. Previously, it was Lu Qin who couldn't move. Now, it was 300 heavenly fate who couldn't use any movement skills. According to the Jyotian style, this kind of restriction of the opponent's skill had to follow a rule, and that was the quality of the skill. However, the eternal night came from the 6 transformations of gods and demons. Even if there was a higher quality movement skill than the 6 transformations of gods and demons, it would be hidden in some unknown place. The limitless sword of gods and demons turned into a black mist and fell from the sky, returning to Evil Child's hand. Lu Chen smiled. It's my turn again. With a flash of red, Lu Chen had already killed his way into the enemy's formation. The blood curse and night demon's effects were activated at the same time. Lu Chen spat out blood all the way, but the blood kept flowing back. This scene was a little bloody, but also a little strange. However, the flowing blood not only replenished his HP, it also activated another effect of the night demon, which was to continuously increase Lu Chen's attack power. Speaking of which, if he could use the blood curse on himself to continuously cleanse his blood, the effect would be very good. Before he finished thinking, Lu Chen had already arrived in front of the enemy. Infinite 3000 body flash slash. The first person Lu Chen killed was the one who activated the blood sacrifice soul sacrifice formation. That person was unable to resist Lu Chen in the demon 6 state and was instantly killed. When the blood sacrifice soul sacrifice formation was broken, fear flashed through the heavenly fate's eyes. The only thing that could still restrict that demon was gone. That guy was a demon god that had broken free from his chains and could kill as he pleased. Why would such a perverted guy appear among the humans? But that guy isn't human at all. He's a demon, Too scary. He's too vicious. Lu Chen had never shown mercy to his enemies. In an instant, blood splattered across the night sky. Chapter 541. The untimely night shrouded the battlefield of the gods of demons. Blood and broken limbs filled the night. When the evil child stopped, his HP did not move at all, and his surroundings were dead silent. Blood flowed down the ultimate sword, but the child was not touched at all. The furball and the other pets had stopped fighting. Since their masters were dead, the pets were naturally unable to fight. Lu Chen called back the little furball and nodded with gratification. Well done, you little guys can finally take charge of things on your own. Lu Chen had invested a lot of time and energy to help them evolve. Divine beasts needed a lot of resources. Although the furball could eat on its own, it had been eating the pills made by Louis. Those were all resources and money. Fortunately, the adult divine beasts did not disappoint Lu Chen. When faced with hundreds of rare pets, the army of divine beasts completely blocked the attack routes of the divine beasts and did not cause any trouble for Lu Chen. He recalled the furball and the other pets so that they could have a good rest. Looking at the corpses on the battlefield, Lu Chen's eyes were cold. Everyone, according to 1% of the territory, calculate how much territory I have taken. Beast's current territory is 3%, Heavenly Demon's current territory is 4%, Titan's current territory is 2%, Nature Elf's current territory is 3%. The simulated map on the ground turned into human territory one by one. One human had taken over 1/20th of the territory of the level 3 heavens. The core members of the various races looked at the solipsistic in horror. This guy had taken 1/20th of the territory of the level 3 heavens all by himself. The human race had become the race with the largest territory in the level 3 heavens. Oh my god, this guy is too terrifying. We wanted to arrest him. Is this his real strength? Sigh, It seems that the only chance to kill him was when he left the Heaven Punishing Tower. Unfortunately, we missed it. Nobody in the level 3 heavens can compete with him. The human race has already risen with this person in charge. Lu Chen raised his head and looked at the core members of the various races. The corners of his mouth curled up and he sneered. I'll give you 10 hours to withdraw from the human border immediately. If I see any non-humankind army, I will destroy them directly. The surrounding non-human race leaders all felt a chill run down their spines. With the solipsistic's ruthless methods, the consequences of provoking him were absolutely unimaginable. The leaders and core members immediately issued orders. With him around, it's impossible for the human race to be wiped out. Inform the troops to withdraw from the human race's borders immediately. This guy is crazy. He might even bite back. He doesn't play by the rules at all. If we can't afford to provoke him, retreat immediately. If the demons still want to annex them, then let them do it themselves. We won't accompany them. Withdraw the troops overnight and return within 3 hours. There must be no delay. Lu Chen stood in the middle of the field and sat down on the ground. That's right, I remember that each competition can have a maximum of 3 rounds, but only 1 round has been carried out. There are still 2 more rounds. When the group of people heard his muttering, they were so scared that their faces turned pale. Lu Chen shook his head, his face full of unhappiness. Coupled with his big evil child head, he looked like a child throwing a tantrum. 21% of the territory feels a little small. Moreover, the human race's territory is scattered all over the place. It doesn't look good. We must connect them together. A certain elder of the nature elf race hurriedly said that, solipsistic, in each myriad races competition, each contestant can indeed have a maximum of 3 rounds of competition. But just now, you killed everyone. We have no one left to participate. Lu Chen frowned. No one left to participate? That doesn't seem to be my problem. It's your own problem. Brother Shan, tell me. If no one participates, what will the result be? Mountain Pulling Strength was so scared that all the hair on his body stood up. Frenzy wanted him to reply, but this was the myriad races competition. Now, the highest leaders of the hundreds of participating races and the sect masters of the core forces were all here, not to mention the other heavenly fate realm experts. He was just a small corporal, but he actually had to speak in this kind of situation and become the focus of everyone. This was something that he didn't even dare to dream of in the past. Moreover, the guy who had intimidated everyone actually called him brother. His status and identity had suddenly increased by a few hundred times. Solipsistic calling him brother, what kind of strength was that? It was simply enough to be recorded in the history of the 3rd heavenly layer. Jiotian people respected strength, but Lu Chen didn't care about this. He wasn't used to Hongyu calling him senior, so he asked him to change it. Mountain Pulling Strength called him frenzy, and Cowherd called him stinking brat, but he didn't mind at all. Moreover, Lu Chen always called his friends older than him brother. Brother Shan, brother monkey, brother green shirt. He didn't care about their strength at all. He only cared about their character and age. However, when the others heard Lu Chen's words, they all looked at Mountain Pulling Strength as if they were looking at a monster. It can't be, the human race has a super expert? Just now, Solipsistic wanted to call that person Brother Shan. Oh my god, it's actually a corporal. What, corporal? This is not good, it's a whole foot higher than Solipsistic's rank. This person's strength is unfathomable. Solipsistic, a mere militia, can kill everyone in an instant. Doesn't that mean that Mountain Pulling Strength is going to dominate the 4th heavenly layer? Mountain Pulling Strength was also speechless. A group of heavenly fate marshals was actually so afraid of a corporal? They spoke as if corporal was the highest rank in the military system, of course. He also knew that the reason why they were so afraid of him was because of Solipsistic. He was a militia. Since he asked him at this time, it showed that their relationship was not ordinary. Birds of a feather flocked together. They naturally placed their strength on the same level as Solipsistic. Brother Shan? Lu Chen asked again. Only then did he pull libation back to reality. Our human race has not participated in the Myriad Tribe tournament for many years. Our territory has been invaded wantonly. We only need to defend and not counterattack. Our people are not allowed to enter the territories of other races. Every year, we need to attack other races with large amounts of resources. Lu Chen nodded. You all heard the result, right? No one participated in the tournament. Lu Chen and mountain pulling strength's questions and answers were obviously not because Lu Chen did not know. He was saying this for the other foreign races to hear. Everyone was well aware of this, and their faces instantly turned pale. This was the cycle of the heavens. When the human race was in decline, they had been oppressed at will. Now they could not send anyone. Perhaps there were still people who could fight, but even a fool could see that whoever they sent now would be courting death. Mr. Solipsistic, can we discuss this? A foreign race's spokesperson said shakily. Our Berkeley race's territory is not big anymore. We had no choice but to participate in the Myriad Tribe tournament. Lu Chen glanced at the edge of the battlefield. There were indeed a few contestants from other races who had not participated in the encirclement against him, including the contestants from the Berkeley race. Perhaps this was why the elder had dared to negotiate with him. Mr. Solipsistic, we are willing to make concessions. In the future, the human race can enter our territory to cultivate. However, please do not encroach on our territory. With that, the person bowed deeply to Lu Chen. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and said coldly, "What makes you think that you have the right to bargain with me?" Chapter 542. A child with small horns asked coldly, causing everyone present to feel a chill in their hearts. Vicious and merciless, this guy had reached the pinnacle of both. Everyone understood that without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. At this point, they could no longer differentiate between races. Otherwise, with that guy's greedy personality, he would probably take more of their territory. After 5 rounds, wouldn't the human race's territory occupy more than 2/3 of the third heaven? If the solipsistic stayed for another year, the second heaven would become the human race's territory. Solipsistic, we have lost, but please give us a way out. The heavenly devil sect leader lowered his noble head. You have to understand that the third heaven cannot be ruled by a single family. Just like the ancient dragon clan everywhere, even if they occupy 90% of the third heaven's territory, they still can't escape the fate of extinction. Yes, we can coordinate and adjust the territory near the human race's territory. This way, you won't be scattered all over the place, a race's spokesperson said hurriedly. Also, just like the Berkeley clan suggested, we will allow the human race to enter our territory to train, and we will not stop them. We are willing to give up some territory and let the human race occupy 1/10 of our territory. After coordination, we will merge the human race's territory together, and at the same time, open all the dungeons in our territory to the human race. We can also pay tribute to the human race every year. Solipsistic, don't be so ruthless. Many of the foreign races begged Lu Chen, and they proposed several major measures, which made the human sect leaders stunned. All the races bowed their heads to the solipsistic alone. Too domineering, I have never felt so proud like today. Mu Mansion Hongyu took a deep breath, and even his back straightened. Mountain Li nodded. I didn't expect this. When this guy first came to the third heaven, he was like all the other newcomers, standing there like a fool. In just a few short months, he has already reached the peak of the third heaven, looking down on all the races. Cowherd laughed and said, Hee, I didn't think that the person I randomly found would turn out to be such a heaven-defying brat. Speaking of which, the name, Solipsistic, will definitely be recorded in the history of the third sky and be worshipped by the future generations like the ancient dragon clan. When the time comes, when those brats in my hometown come up and know that I, straw man, once worked together with the strongest militia, the solipsistic, they will all die of envy. Mountain pulling strength was a little unconvinced. Elder Suo, I'm worth it too. You heard it just now too. Those outsiders all said that I'm stronger than the solipsistic. In the future, when I say the name of mountain pulling strength, I'll scare everyone to death. The kingdom guarding Autumn Phoenix could not help but smirk as she watched Li Baishan and Cowherd bragging. Speaking of which, it was better not to tell this to Yenran. Otherwise, if that girl knew that the solipsistic warrior she had always wanted to surpass had reached the invincible realm of the third heaven in just a few months, she would probably have a mental breakdown. Sigh, this girl, of all people, she just had to meet this brat. It's really too difficult to surpass him? Right, I wonder how Brother Du Kuang will handle this. Even though the sect leaders of the 5 major powers were present, everyone seemed to have silently agreed on one thing. The solipsistic warrior's attitude was the attitude of the entire human race. His decision was their joint decision. I never thought that a group of heavenly fate marshals and the sect leaders of the top powers would actually have to listen to a small militia. This is probably the first time in the history of the third heaven. Cowherd smiled. That brat told me long ago that he doesn't care about military ranks. This is only the rule of the third heaven. I never thought that he would really be above the rules. At this moment, everyone's attention was on Lu Chen. Lu Chen remained silent for a long time. It was time for him to give an answer. I'll do as you say. Sign and sign. If I go against it, I will exterminate my entire race. Finally, the group of outsiders let out a long sigh of relief. When the human army had arrived, they were all cautious and did not dare to act rashly. However, when they returned, their faces were filled with pride. The glory and dignity of the human race had returned once again. Hey brat, why did you let those outsiders take the corpses back? Lu Chen was slightly serious. Cowherd, you and I have both seen the people of other races. I also said that in our eyes, they are all evil people. However, in their own race, they are heroes if they can fight for their race's interests without caring about their lives. So, madman, you really didn't kill them? Lu Chen nodded. I don't have any deep hatred with them. Since I have already achieved my goal, why should I kill them all? Therefore, I didn't completely destroy their bodies. They should be able to live after resting for about half a year. The group safely passed through the territory of the monster race and entered the territory of the human race. The group was about to continue when Lu Chen suddenly called for Mountain Li and the others, as well as Cowherd. They temporarily separated from Hong Yu and the others. Lu Chen wanted to go to the place where he had just arrived at the third heaven to take a look. Not far ahead was the village where Lu Chen had been born. At this time, the monster race stationed here had already retreated, leaving behind an empty village. The stone wall in front of the village had also been repaired. Lu Chen stood on the stone wall and looked down at the forest in front of him. Madman, why did you bring us here? Lu Chen said, actually, I have already thought about it. I won't really take over the territories of other races. 3 Lives frowned and said, in other words, you were just acting when you forced them? Lu Chen nodded. I wanted them to give me a reasonable suggestion. This suggestion was definitely something they could accept. They won't regret it in the short term. Everyone was a little confused about Lu Chen's intentions. Although Lu Chen's plan was ingenious, based on the situation at that time, even if Lu Chen insisted on fighting, they had no choice but to agree. Why would they take a step back? Lu Chen said indifferently, if I forced them to their deaths, it would instead cause them to resist. Even if they didn't dare to do so at that time, they would definitely stake it all in the future. At that time, I was very difficult to talk to. After they fought for benefits with great difficulty, the first thing they thought of was not to obtain more benefits, but to temporarily protect their rights. This mentality should be similar to that of humans. Therefore, when the Bolek race asked me, I refused. That was to show them that I wasn't someone who was easy to talk to. In the end, they proposed a compromise, and I agreed. At that time, there was less resentment in their hearts and more joy. This was also the effect I wanted. Shuang Wu suddenly said, Madman, you want to leave the third heaven? Therefore, it was said that a woman's thoughts were more delicate. Lu Chen had these thoughts because Lu Chen could not always protect the interests of the human race. No matter how much he fought for now, if he left and the myriad race rebelled, then there would be nothing left. It was because he left them a way out that they would not collectively resist. Sansheng stared at Lu Chen with wide eyes. I didn't expect you to think so much. Madman, your thoughts are too meticulous. Right, you? When are you leaving? Lu Chen smiled. I won't go back with the army. I will stay in the third heaven for a few more months and level up. At that time, the myriad race will have fulfilled their promise. I will leave one person behind and then quietly leave. If my people come to the third heaven, please take care of them. I won't be able to receive them. Suddenly, the scene became quiet. After a long time, Cutthroat said, Sorry, madman, your growth speed is too fast. We can't catch up to you. Cutthroat sighed. Shuangwu held back her tears and did not speak. Mountain Strength, Main Yang, Chasing Cloud, Ice Bear, Heartless, Big Beard, and Qing He were all silent. They had gone through fire and water together. The battle outside the village, the battle with the Thunder Giant Ape, and the battle at the Heaven's Punishment Tower. No matter who the opponent was, their team had never been separated. But all good things must come to an end. Madman had brought them here to bid farewell to them in advance. For a moment, the atmosphere became sad. Suoweng took a deep breath and forced out a smile. Hey, I say, your team is always crying. Brat, going to the fourth heaven is a good thing. I see that you guys are not bad. If you work hard, you will be able to go up. Brat, take good care of yourself. I know that nothing can stop you from moving forward. We will not drag you down. Continue to move forward bravely towards your goal. Mountain Strength pursed his lips and walked over. He heavily punched Lu Chen's shoulder. Madman, no matter where you go, don't forget about us brothers and sisters. Cutthroat grabbed Lu Chen's neck from behind. Remember to come back and see us. If you forget, I will kill you with Cutthroat. Yes, you will never eat my roasted meat again. And my frost arrow. I will not let you use it. Can you use devil change? Let me touch your ears. Yes. I will pluck a hair as a souvenir. Lu Chen shook his head. These guys changed their faces too quickly. He had no choice but to come back and see them. Each and every one of them was asking too much. He had to teach them a lesson. Under the setting sun, a few figures were fighting. However, this time, Lu Chen seemed to have lost. Hey, you guys really plucked my hair. Hey, Chasing Cloud, you are too much. You fucking plucked a bunch. My tail is already bald. Chapter 543. Since Lu Chen wanted to maintain his prestige, he couldn't tell anyone about his departure from the third layer of heaven. He only told the people he trusted the most. Mountain Strength and the others couldn't stay any longer. They had to catch up with the team. Lu Chen also left behind a large amount of equipment in the Wood Mansion's warehouse. Limitless Sword only devoured new equipment. Lu Chen had no use for the old equipment. I've divided the equipment into 3 portions. I left one for Brother Mountain and the others. There are 2 more. When my people reach the third layer of heaven, I'll give the larger portion to the Iron and Blood Great Wall and the smaller portion to the Red High Heels. Lu Chen instructed. Okay, don't worry. Leave this to us. Seeing that they were about to say goodbye, Shuangwu suddenly pulled Lu Chen to the side and handed something to Lu Chen. Lu Chen looked at the thing in his hand strangely. Map of an unknown area, 4th layer of heaven. Lu Chen looked at the map. It was unknown how old the map was, but some areas couldn't be seen clearly. He could only see part of the route. Lu Chen looked at Shuangwu in surprise. Shuangwu, this is a map passed down from my family. It's a certain area in the 4th layer of heaven. No one knows where this place is. Lu Chen frowned. Shuangwu, why are you showing this to me? Shuangwu smiled. If there's a chance, can you go take a look? Although my family has declined, my family said that this place hides the hope of our Frost Clan's rise. This was the first time Lu Chen heard of the Frost Clan. Speaking of which, the secret of the Frost Clan was hidden in the 4th layer of heaven? Did it mean that the Frost Clan was once stronger than the 5 great powers? Shuangwu, you gave me such a secret. Does your family not have any objections? Aren't you worried that if there's some treasure inside, I'll take it and run? Shuangwu shook her head. I'm an ice mage. Mages were originally prophets. My family all came from prophets. Because of this, we believe in fate even more, Lu Chen frowned. Fate has allowed me to meet you, and it has also allowed me to see you clearly. I believe that you are someone worthy of being entrusted with. Frost Dance said, her face slightly red. It did take courage for a girl to say something like, worth trusting. Unfortunately, Lu Chen showed his true colors as a straight man. He smiled foolishly and said, okay, if I have the chance to come here, I'll definitely help you look for it. A trace of disappointment flashed across Frost Dance's fair face, but it was just a flash. That, madman, my family's records about the four-layered heavens have been lost for a long time. Now I only remember one. You must pay attention to it. What is it? Shuang Wu said solemnly, the fourth layer of heaven is known as the heaven domain before the fifth layer of heaven. Lu Chen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Frost Dance, how could you joke with me like this? The fourth heaven is obviously the first heaven domain before the fifth heaven. Do I need you to tell me this? Shuang Wu, however, didn't laugh. I'm not teasing you. Think about it, why use the fifth heaven as a symbol? This was just like how the 5th of June was the day before the 6th of June. Everyone knew that, but when it came to its other identity, it was completely different. The day before the college entrance exam. Lu Chen stopped smiling. Shuang Wu's words suddenly reminded him, could it be that there's something special about the fifth layer of heaven? Shuang Wu only said 2 words, a qualitative change. Lu Chen immediately understood. That's why the fourth layer of heaven is very dangerous and also very important. You must be extra careful. Shuang Wu looked at Lu Chen with concern. Okay, thank you Shuang Wu. I'll remember it. After the two finished talking, Su Awing seemed to have something to give to Lu Chen. Old man, don't tell me you still have a treasure map? Lu Chen looked at the item in his hand and looked at Su Awing strangely. Su Awing laughed. Brat, how could I have so many treasure maps? Do you think treasure maps can be found everywhere? This is something you can't get. Lu Chen opened the small wooden box. Inside lay 4 cards and a wooden tablet. Attribute extraction scroll, 100 points. Second layer of heaven realm token, 1 day. Su Awing scratched his head. Brat, you're too stubborn. You're not willing to raise your military rank, so you can't exchange for this. But I can exchange for it, hee. I heard that the fourth layer of heaven's attribute extraction limit will increase a lot. Maybe you won't be interested in 100 points. But you should at least try it and understand the attribute extraction, right? The lower realm token is too expensive. I don't have much military merit, so I only exchanged for 1 day. If you don't have enough, I'll go earn some more. Brat, there must be a lot of people in the second layer of heaven who want to see you. Look at you, you don't care at all. I think you won't think of coming back to see us even if you reach the fourth layer of heaven. Lu Chen laughed. Hey, I'm too busy. Thanks, Suing. After parting ways, Su Awang and the others had already gone to catch up with the group. Lu Chen's departure would not be made public. If they stayed too long, people would be suspicious. In the village, only Lu Chen was left. Lu Chen took out the tribute extraction scroll and the lower realm token. If it's just 1 day, should I bring the wild monster army up? Lu Chen thought about it and decided to leave the army to the second layer of heaven for now. Looking at the income from the personal dungeon, the daily dungeon entries were still used up in less than an hour. This meant that there were still many people who needed to level up through the personal dungeon. I can go back and level up the army and dungeon. Alright, I can catch a few strong wild monsters to expand the army. The matter of going to the lower realm might have to wait until he caught some wild monsters. Now, all that was left was the attribute extraction scroll. Is this the legendary attribute extraction? Lu Chen took a deep breath. Let's use it together and try it offline. Strength attribute extraction scroll used. Agility attribute extraction scroll used. Lu Chen woke up from the game cabin, opened the cabin door, and walked out. He looked at his fists. Did his strength, agility, physique, and even spiritual power increase? When he passed by Lu Yi's room, Lu Chen pulled his sister out and called Li Muhua over. Brother Chen, I'm in a dungeon. Why did you call me in such a hurry? Li Muhua was still panting. It looked like he ran all the way here. Brother, what's wrong? Lu Chen thought about it and said to Li Muhua, Blockhead, do you have a device to test the body's functions? Li Muhua frowned. We definitely don't have a strength stone like the one in Jiutian, but we do have a place to test one's physical fitness. We can compare the results and determine a person's physical fitness. For example? That's right. Weightlifting, 100m, and so on. Those are all regular events. Lu Chen nodded. Those were the only things that could be used to test one's physical fitness on Earth. Take me to test it, a secret test. Li Muhua's eyes widened. He seemed to have thought of something. Brother Chen, you couldn't have already? Lu Chen smiled. Won't you know once you test it? Chapter 544. Li Muhua was also ruthless. He immediately called for a helicopter to bring Lu Chen and Lu Yi to the nearest military base. The helicopter landed in a forest, and then the cave in front of them slowly opened. Lu Chen and his sister were stunned. This military base was really well hidden. Lin Hai personally received Lu Chen and his sister. Entering the military base, Lu Chen saw many advanced fighter jets and semi-finished armed tanks. These were things he had never seen on TV. Brother Lu Chen, this is our research base. The weapons you see are currently being researched and developed by us. They haven't been made public yet. Lin Hai smiled as he introduced. As a civilian, Lu Chen didn't expect that he would be able to see these things. Elder Lin, I'm testing my physical fitness. There's no need to test it in a secret base. Lin Hai laughed. Brother Lu Chen, don't be nervous. The secrets on your body are much more important than these. Just this attribute alone is enough to change the fate of mankind. Naturally, we can't be careless. The testing area here uses the most advanced technology. For example, the 1,000-meter track. The time can be accurate to the millisecond. There's absolutely no difference. Lu Chen also hoped that his data could be accurately measured. Since this place was the most accurate, then he would test it here. The semi-finished tanks in the testing area had been removed in advance. At this time, the field in front of Lu Chen was empty. There was a straight track that was a kilometer long. It was hard to imagine how big this military base was on the surface. There were some instruments installed at each node of the track. They looked very complicated, and Lu Chen didn't recognize them. Movement speed is the best test. Brother Lu Chen, let's start with movement speed. For the 100m and 1000m tests, one focuses on explosive speed. This point is mainly based on the agility attribute. The other tests physical fitness and endurance. This point is a combination of agility and physique. It seemed that the military had already made preparations and developed a complete set of test items. This was also good. The analysis of the data would be left to the experts. Lu Chen would be fine. At this time, a large number of scientists had already entered the viewing area. They were nervously staring at the few people in the arena. All the equipment in the field was automated. When Lu Chen stood on the starting line, the starting gun on one side automatically fired at random. There was no need for manual operation, which increased the accuracy of the data. Lin Hai, Li Muhua, and Lu Yi also returned to the spectator area to watch the test with the other scientists. The first event was the 100-meter sprint. Lu Chen's starting position was obviously very amateur. Suddenly, the gun beside him fired. Lu Chen took the first step after a short reaction. In just a few breaths of time, he had already crossed the finish line. Damn, this is too fast. Professor Zhang, how much time did it take? Without even looking at the exact time, it was already certain that Lu Chen had most likely broken the world record. Professor Zhang checked the data given by several instruments and raised his head in shock. 423 seconds. What? More than 7 seconds. Li Muhua's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. He's faster than the world record by more than 2 seconds. He hasn't undergone any training. Professor Zhang hurriedly found Lu. Young lady, you're Lu Chen's sister, right? Lu Yi nodded blankly. Do you know how many seconds he usually takes for the 100-meter sprint? I don't know about that either. I only know that his nutrition couldn't keep up since he was young. His sports results have always been average. From an average person to breaking the world record by more than 2.5 seconds. This improvement shocked the scientists even more. This result is not only a huge improvement, but it has also exceeded the human speed limit. Professor Zhang said, "This is the change caused by 100 points of dexterity. If it's 1,000 points, or even 10,000 points, I think that the scenes in some sci-fi movies can definitely be realized." Yes, this change is a fundamental change to the human body. The human body structure determines that the 100-meter sprint limit is 9.48 seconds. Through scientific training and diet, people are constantly approaching this limit. However, Mad God easily broke through the human limit. "I really want to study Mad God's body structure," Lin Hai said. "Professor Li, you can only analyze the data. As for the body structure, you can't touch it. You have to know that this young man is the hope of mankind." Yes. "I'm just saying. I know what's important and what's not." Professor Li smiled apologetically. The test continued. Whether it was the 100-meter sprint, the 1,000-meter sprint, or the various strength tests, Lu Qin easily broke the original world record and improved his results by a large margin. The group of experts did not have any time to rest at all. They were constantly studying Lu Chen's various data. The last test was the spiritual power test. Due to the lack of relevant experience, even the scientists did not specify an effective test method. "Brother, why don't you try those skills in the game and see if there's any destructive power?" Lu Yi suddenly said. "Yes, that's a good idea." Professor Zhang was enlightened. "We don't have a way to use spiritual power, but Jiutian itself has it. Jiutian uses brain neuron connections. The methods of using those skills have actually been left in our brains. It's just that there's no spiritual power in reality, so we can't use it. But now it's just right to test it." Li Muhua went out to look around and found an iron rod. "Brother Qin, we don't have any swords or knives here. Didn't you use the wishful long staff before? Do you think you can use this?" Lu Qin took the long staff. "I'll try it. Then I'll use the earth-splitting chasm. I use this skill more often, so I'm more familiar with it." Everyone stepped back and looked nervously at Lu Qin. When Lu Qin held the iron rod in his hand, it was as if he had returned to the game for a moment. It was a subtle feeling. For a moment, he felt as if Jiutian and reality were beginning to overlap. Earth-splitting chasm. Lu Qin smashed the iron rod on the reinforced concrete ground. The iron rod did not have the special effect of enlarging, but it still burst out with amazing power. When the rod went down, the people around it even felt the ground shake. Immediately afterward, the reinforced ground cracked open. The crack cracked outward until it reached Lin Hai's feet. "My God, this is not something that can be done by human power. It's spiritual power at work." The scientists were already a little incoherent. "It's amazing. 100 points of spiritual power has allowed humans to reach such a terrifying level." Lu Qin felt a little numb in his hand, but other than that, he did not feel anything. "I finally understand a little now." After Lu Qin spoke, everyone shut up and listened carefully. His realization was definitely more important than anyone else's. In the past, many people said that their homeworld was a low-martial world, a mid-martial world, and a high-level world. At that time, I didn't understand. Earth has so many high-tech weapons, so why would they look down on us? Lu Qin looked at the distant steel equipment. But now, a mere 100 points of attribute is already so terrifying. Some races are born with terrifying attributes, and these attributes are somehow brought into Jiutian. In front of them, some of my attributes are not as high as theirs. It's easy to imagine that a high-level world can easily crush our world with force. Lu Chen's gaze became bitingly cold. Lu Chen's abnormal attributes were dozens of times higher than an ordinary person, but his HP was not even as high as a captain of the Beast Clan. This is the difference. Lu Qin narrowed his eyes. Chapter 545. It wasn't until nighttime that Lu Qin and his sister returned to their place. After testing for an entire day, Li Muhua ordered a bunch of delicious food to eat at Lu Chen's place. The specific values of the test still needed to be analyzed by the experts for a while, but the results so far had already left the three of them in disbelief. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Lu Chen's current physical fitness was the strongest in the entire human race. Chen Ge, to be honest, watching you test today made me feel very conflicted, said Li Muhua as he drank his beer. How do you feel? Asked Lu Chen, puzzled. I can't describe it. I'm definitely shocked, but I also feel a little scared. Li Muhua simply put down his chopsticks. Chen Ge, think about it. Stage 3 is already like this, and it's only 100 points in stats. It feels like Jiutian is giving us a taste of its sweetness. Our character's stats are almost 10,000 points now. If they were to be fully extracted, how scary would that be? Louis added, Bro, I'm actually a little scared too. What will the world be like in the future? It'll definitely be completely different from what it is now. I can't quite imagine it. Lu Chen nodded. He could understand this feeling. When the world that only existed in fiction was right in front of everyone's eyes, when that mysterious veil was about to fall, it was inevitable to feel this way. It was a sense of loss towards the unknown future. Seeing that Lu Yi and Li Muhua were a little confused, Lu Chen smiled. From the day the Jiutian server was released, we were already embroiled in the competition of the entire universe. There's no point in being scared. We can only bravely move forward. Lu Chen's words immediately pulled Lu Yi and Li Muhua out of their daze. Yeah, bro, we understand. Other people don't have this kind of opportunity in their lifetime. We're actually lucky too. Right? Opportunities and challenges coexist. My life will also be as exciting as the movies. Li Muhua's eyes lit up again. Lu Chen smiled and raised his glass. No, it'll be even more exciting than the movies. At night, before Louis entered the game, Lu Chen came to his sister's room. Bro, aren't you going to enter the game? Is it because you're too tired today and need to rest? Lu Chen shook his head and sat beside Lu Yi's bed. My stamina is much better than before. I don't feel like I'm like this. Fatty, do you still remember our parents? Lu Yi frowned. Brother, why did you suddenly mention this? Lu Chen took a deep breath. He really wanted to tell Lu Yi that Mu Xian had mentioned his father before, but when he saw Lu Yi's carefree appearance, he swallowed his words. He hadn't found the answer yet, so there was no need to add to his sister's worries. Nothing much. What level are you now? Level 92. Level 92? So fast? Hee hee, there's someone leading us now. However, they don't reveal their identities. Brother Muhua secretly told me that we just need to follow them to level up and not ask about anything else. They don't know much anyway. Lu Yi jumped to the side of the bed and sat beside her brother. Brother, we might be able to enter the third heaven soon. I'll look for you then. Lu Chen blinked his eyes. You don't know who they are either? Can they be trusted? Yes, they can be trusted. They've already led a few of our teams. They've been working hard and even helped us to figure out how to clear the Tower of Babel. They just hope that we can grow faster. Lu Chen didn't know who these people were. They shouldn't be third heaven players. Brother, someone asked me about you. At that time, I got an important piece of information from him and didn't tell anyone. What is it? They're Earthlings. Lu Chen frowned. Earthlings? That was even more impossible for them to be third heaven players. In the third heaven, he didn't seem to have met a single Earthling. He asked other questions, but Lu Yi didn't know either. His sister naturally wouldn't hide anything from him. In that case, he might have to solve this question himself. The leveling speed of the Earth players exceeded Lu Chen's expectations. Lu Chen was very pleased. After chatting for a while, Lu Chen returned to his room and entered the game. After going online, Lu Chen went to the Nature Elves' territory alone. The Nature Elves' territory was still heavily guarded. However, after seeing Lu Chen, a human, they didn't stop him from entering the territory. It seemed that the Nature Elves had already announced the results of the Myriad Race Tournament and allowed humans to enter their territory. Although he was always surrounded by the same gazes, Lu Chen didn't care. He went straight to the Nature Elves' largest main city. The 5 main cities of the Nature Elves, or more accurately, were 5 enormous towering trees. The area where their roots connected was the golden spot for leveling up. That was also where Lu Chen wanted to go. It was a little boring to be alone, so Lu Chen brought Xiao Min and Little Green with him. 5 days later, the monsters in the 5 main cities no longer spawned. After investigation, the nature elves discovered that someone was leveling up in the core area of the wild monsters and had monopolized all the wild monsters. Dark Moon Elder, the humans are too much. They actually monopolized the leveling area. A tall and thin male elf said with righteous indignation, "I'll kill him." On the other hand, the elf who was called the Dark Moon Elder didn't look old at all. She was no different from a young female elf. Kill him? Greenleaf, can you use your brain? The number of humans who can solo that place can be counted with one hand. Not a single wild monster escaped from the 5 main leveling areas. How many people can do this? You're saying that he's the solipsistic. Dark Moon stood up. Her body shape was almost the same as a human female, but she seemed to be even more slender. Whether it's him or not, the myriad races have already bowed their heads to that person. Since we've already signed the treaty, we must act according to the terms. Dark Moon narrowed her slender eyes. That guy is definitely not a kind person. With his cruelty, I can't even believe that he would agree to our request. Maybe he's already regretting it now. He's waiting for someone to violate the agreement so that he can break it. But Elder, are we going to admit defeat just like that? Admit defeat? No, we nature elves will never admit defeat. We're just avoiding him. Don't disturb him during this period of time until he leaves. Greenleaf let out a long breath. It seemed that this was the only way now. In the end, Lu Chen only stayed here for a week before heading to the next stop, the Sky Demon Race's territory. Half a month later, he left the Sky Demon Race's leveling area and headed to the Beast Race, then to the Titan Race, the Demigod Race. 2 months later, Lu Chen took some time to return to the Second Heaven. He expanded his army and upgraded it to a level 4 army. He also upgraded his personal dungeon to level 90. As for income, Lu Chen didn't care anymore. His assets were now in the tens of billions, and it was still growing steadily every day. He would leave the personal dungeon for the Earth players to level up for the time being. Erzhan, these are 10 Kuei cows and 10 three-tailed foxes. You can assign teams. With them, no one in the Second Heaven can threaten you. At first, Lu Chen wanted to visit his friends in the Second Heaven. However, the Earth players were now widely scattered in the Second Heaven. Lu Chen found it like looking for a needle in a haystack. One day's time was too tight. Lu Chen shook his head and had to give up the chance to visit his old friends. When can I freely descend? Lu Chen grumbled and returned to the Third Heaven. At the center of the Myriad Race battlefield stood a giant tower that shot straight into the sky. A large number of armies from various races were lying in ambush around the tower, specifically to stop other races from breaking into the tower. Without the support of a race, it was almost impossible to get close. However, at this moment, a red figure was flashing toward the tower at a speed that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. Tower of Babel, I'm coming. Chapter 546. Arriving in front of Tong Tian Tower, Lu Chen directly entered the instance. Once he entered the instance, the map showed that he was in the 3rd floor. A large black hole appeared in front of him. The most important thing in the 3rd heaven was the race competition. As for the 3rd heaven domain boss, no one mentioned it. Lu Chen did not feel any pressure. Speaking of the 400 heavens fate that he defeated, it was said that many of them had the ability to enter the 4th heaven. Then it shouldn't be difficult for him to enter Tong Tian Tower. Touching the entrance, Lu Chen entered the instance. In the middle of the room, there was a figure with his back facing him. Looking at the figure, it seemed to be a human. Of course, there were many races that liked to turn into human form. Then when the boss turned around, it was very likely that he would have a strange face. Lu Chen walked over. When Lu Chen stopped behind the boss spoke first. You're here. I've been waiting for you here for 2 months. After saying this, that person turned around. Lu Chen knit his brows. The person in front of him was actually a human. A handsome human man in a white robe. You're a human? That person faintly smiled. Race doesn't make a difference to me. Whatever race comes to challenge me, that's what race I am. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. This fellow could transform into 10,000 races. You said you've been waiting for me for 2 months? What do you mean? Lu Chen probed. Aren't you the boss here? Anyone can challenge you. The man waved his hand and a large creature's corpse appeared beside him. The corpse was still shining with a golden light, as if the items it dropped hadn't been picked up yet. Lu Chen saw that fellow's ID and was even more shocked. Heaven Domain Boss, 7 Sin Source. The Heaven Domain Boss was already dead. How could Lu Chen not be shocked? This was his Heaven Domain Boss. Then who was this person standing in front of him? The man faintly smiled. 7 Sins is far from being your opponent. There's no meaning in letting it be your Heaven Domain Boss. Lu Chen's mind was a bit confused. What do you mean? The man smiled faintly. His smile was like a spring breeze. Do you still not understand? 7 Sins doesn't deserve to be your Heavenly Domain Boss, so I killed it. My mission is to stop you from entering the 4th heaven. In a sense, I am your Heavenly Domain Boss. Lu Chen's eyes widened in anger. Other people can enter level 4 as long as they kill this boss. Why do I have to fight with you? Are you afraid of me? I just think it's unfair. Lu Chen said angrily. Fair? Solipsistic, there is no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. Your existence is a challenge to the Jiutian, and your choice has shown your position time and time again. Since you are not willing to compromise, it is impossible for you to be fair. This sentence seemed to have revealed the identity of this man. This guy was definitely not an ordinary person. Lu Chen could not help but distance himself from this man. The man maintained his smile and suddenly asked another question. Do you know why the ancient dragon clan didn't enter the 4th heaven? You think they really didn't want to? Wrong, there is actually only one real reason. The man smiled faintly, because, at that time, the Heavenly Domain Boss was me. I didn't want them to enter the 4th heaven, so they could only stay in the 3rd heaven. There were no exceptions. Without competition in the 3rd heaven, even the strongest ancient dragon clan was not needed in the 4th heaven. Speaking of which, the 9-winged dragon emperor that you killed was indeed the strongest among the ancient dragon clan. However, in the long history of the ancient dragon clan, it didn't seem to be in the top 100. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. It was not because the ancient dragon clan was more powerful than the legend said, but because this guy who blocked all the ancient dragon clan from entering the 4th heaven was the most terrifying one. Lu Chen sucked in a deep breath. Clearly, his Heavenly Domain Boss was not the origin of 7 sins that fell on the ground, but this guy with unfathomable strength in front of him. Suddenly, Lu Chen laughed. Looks like my luck is really bad. Challenging Tong Tian Tower can even attract an expert from the ancient era. Sigh, looks like this battle won't be so simple. The white-clothed man smiled and shrugged. Can't help it. Who asked you to be so unappreciative? Oh right, if you defeat me, I'll leave the boss drops for you. I guarantee that you won't miss out on a single item. Lu Chen curled his lips and laughed. Actually, what I want to know is, if I kill you, will you drop anything? I can't help you with this because I've never died before. I don't know if I'll drop anything if I die. Speaking of which, the things you have on you are also quite attractive to me. You've already gathered the first 6 transformations of the 9 transformations of gods and demons. The limitless sword of gods and demons, TSK, and the most uncontrollable sky-devouring rat in Juten. I really want them all. Lu Chen's face was full of awkwardness. Speaking of which, what a coincidence. I've never died before either. I don't know if I'll drop anything if I die. That'll depend on your luck. Haha, then it looks like one of us will have to die today. Both of them had smiles on their faces as if they were chatting with friends. However, the content of their conversation could be heard by anyone. They were at daggers drawn and at each other's throats. Their laughter came to an abrupt end. Their eyes were filled with unparalleled killing intent. That's right, today, one of these 2 people who had never died before would definitely fall. In a short 5 minutes, the 2 of them had finished testing each other. Lu Chen went from the 3rd transformation of gods to the 4th transformation of gods, the 5th transformation of gods, And now, he had entered the sixth transformation of gods. Infinite bestowal liberation. In the sixth transformation of gods, Lu Chen had already used his strongest move. The opponent in front of him had also used the super transformation skill, 7 Deadly Sins. At this moment his entire body was emitting 7 different colors. It was sacred and somewhat strange. Seeing Lu Chen use the sixth transformation of gods, that person's eyes were burning. Solipsistic, the sixth transformation of gods and demons is only SOSO. I don't think it's stronger than my 7 deadly sins. Is this the special effect of the sixth transformation of gods? Infinite bestowal liberation. Haha, exciting. It's a pity that only I can grant you liberation. 7 deadly sins, sin of sloth. After this battle, the ranking of the number 1 forbidden book in Jiutian should be changed. In the flashing state, Lu Chen was suddenly forced to stop using the skill and run in the opposite direction. Among the 7 deadly sins, the sin of sloth was punished by running. In Jiutian, the effect was similar to intimidation. The impeccable bestowal liberation was actually restrained by the simplest intimidation. 7 deadly sins, sin of jealousy. 7 deadly sins, sin of pride. The sin of jealousy was punished by closing one's eyes. The sin of pride was punished by bearing a heavy burden. Lu Chen's vision suddenly disappeared. It was pitch black in front of him. His movement speed suddenly dropped, as if he was carrying a mountain on his back. Dark Eye of the Gods. Lu Chen gritted his teeth and summoned his magic weapon. Dark Eye of the Gods? Ha ha ha, it's useless in front of me. Ancient God of War, heaven-crossing sword. The man turned into a sword light. The Dark Eye of the Gods gave an immeasurable number of preemptive warnings. There was only one possibility for such a situation. There was only one sword, but there were countless variations. Solipsistic, you didn't expect this, did you? Did you think you could pass through the third heaven so easily? I'll make sure you die before you can pass through the third heaven. Lu Chen's breathing quickened. The Dark Eye of the Gods had already told him that death was approaching. The man in white was right. He really didn't expect to meet such a terrifying opponent at the third heaven. Very good. Lu Chen's nostrils flared. I thought the third heaven wasn't that difficult. I didn't want to use this move. Fine, I'll let you have a taste of it. 6 transformations of gods and demons, symbiosis. With a boom, the limitless godly demon sword and Lu Chen exploded with black and white lights at the same time. It almost caused the entire battlefield to collapse. The heaven-crossing sword was directly pushed back. The man crashed into dozens of stone pillars and fell to the ground. He didn't have time to check his injuries. He looked at the core of the black light in horror. This is an exclusive skill. The limitless godly demon sword was the exclusive weapon of the 9 transformations of gods and demons. Chapter 547. Even Lu Chen's closest friends didn't know how many trump cards Lu Chen had up his sleeves. It was his style to not use his ultimate move in advance. While cultivating the 6 transformations of the Celestial and Demon, Lu Chen discovered that the Infinite Celestial and Demon Sword had activated a new special effect, Celestial and Demon Symbiosis. Unfortunately, within the third heaven, no one was able to force Lu Chen to use the symbiosis of gods and demons. Who would have thought that in the Tong Tian Tower, where everyone thought he could easily pass through, the white-robed man was able to force Lu Chen to use this move in a battle that no one else knew about. The black and white of the limitless godly demon sword merged into one. The black and white were like 2 living azure dragons, interweaving and swimming. You have me, I have you. Lu Chen had 2 horns on his head, and his whole body was bursting with layers of golden light. One of his pupils was gold, and the other was dark green. He looked like a demigod, and his whole body slowly rose into the air. The white-robed man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Just now, he had relied on the aftershock of his transformation to break through his Measure Heaven sword and force him back. Without a doubt, the symbiosis of gods and demons was definitely the solipsistic's strongest skill. Very good. The man in white's lips curled up and his eyes were filled with passion. Then he pulled out a long whip from the void. You're not the only one with a personal weapon. Your 6 transformations of demons and gods are ultimately incomplete, and its might is limited. On the other hand, my 7 deadly sins have already been cultivated to the pinnacle. I don't believe that I can't defeat your celestial demon symbiosis at my pinnacle. You are qualified to witness this move of mine. The white-clothed man's aura surged rapidly, and the long whip in his hand shone brightly. Exclusive skill. 7 deadly sins, 7 sins combined punishment. 7 sins combined punishment against gods and demons. Outside the Tower of Babel, the troops stationed in the distance suddenly felt the ground shake violently. What's going on? An earthquake? No, it's coming from Tong Tian Tower. Someone is challenging Tong Tian Tower? That's impossible. Even if someone tried to break into the tower, it's impossible for them to cause the surrounding area to tremble. Could it be that something has happened to Tong Tian Tower? Send the order immediately. Head to the Tower of Babel to investigate. Right at this moment, a burst of air swept over, cutting the surrounding trees in half. The force of the air directly overturned countless people. With the Tong Tian Tower as the center, the energy rippled out in a circular manner, sweeping across the entire area. The Heaven Devil Race's Guardian General managed to block the Chi Ring with his spirit energy shield in time. The Chi Ring swept past him and vanished in the blink of an eye, but the low-ranking soldiers behind him were all caught up in it, turning the camp into a complete mess. He turned to look in the direction of Sky Split Tower. The abyssal demon's eyes were wide and round. There was no damage, but it was able to cause such terrifying destruction. This is the aftermath of the collision. Heavens! Just who is it that dared to challenge the trials of Tong Tian Tower? Just one move was enough to cause such a terrifying aftershock. His subordinate could be considered an expert as well. He dodged the attack and said in a low voice, "Marshal Tian Min, I went to ask around just now. There was no news of fighting around Tong Tian Tower. I wonder who broke through all the defenses so easily." This descendant was the heavenly demon marshal that Lu Chen had fought before. Tian Min took a deep breath. It's not impossible to break through the defenses, but the strange thing is that the heaven domain boss of Tong Tian Tower should be the origin of 7 sins. Although it's powerful, it shouldn't be this powerful. The aftershock of the collision with the person who challenged the tower actually reached 10,000 meters away. I really can't imagine what level of collision between the two moves could cause such a huge impact. The subordinate thought for a moment and said tentatively, "Could it be the solipsistic?" Impossible. The solipsistic is still in human territory. He's currently residing in the Wood Prefecture city. There are people from every race watching him. Inside Tong Tian Tower, celestial demon symbiosis and 7 sins punishment were unleashed at the same time. These two moves did not suppress or restrain the other. They collided head-on. When the two super-powerful skills collided, the shocking impact was even beyond Lu Chen's expectations. The two of them flew backward at the same time. Both of them crashed through countless stone pillars and smashed into the edge of the wall. If this was not Tong Tian Tower, the two of them would have smashed through the wall and flown out. Lu Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. His HP was directly gone. Not only was his HP bar gone, but there was even worse news. Your physical body has been severely damaged. The damage ratio is 98.3%. A moment later, Lu Chen was resurrected from the flames. At full health, Lu Chen's maximum HP was 27 million. However, after resurrection, his HP was only 460,000. This was not the most important thing. All his skills were sealed and he could not move his body. 98.3% damage to his physical body meant that Lu Chen had almost died this time. This was the first time that Lu Chen was unable to move after being resurrected. The damage to his physical body was too terrifying. It perfectly countered the resurrection skill. He struggled to sit up, panting as he looked at his opponent in the distance. His opponent was also leaning against the wall, motionless. He did not know if his opponent was dead or alive. Is he dead or not? Lu Chen stood up with difficulty and moved over step by step. That guy was leaning against the wall, his head drooping. It seemed that he was not breathing. Lu Chen raised everlasting sword and was about to stab down. Suddenly, the guy on the ground opened his eyes and lashed out with his whip. Lu Chen's skills were sealed. It would be a miracle if he could even walk over. There was no way he could dodge this attack. Even if Xiaomin could help him block this attack, his physical body could not take any more damage. At that time, his character would only have a sliver of HP left, but Lu Chen would really die. At this moment, a white shadow flew out. The moment it flew out, its body expanded and blocked the attack. You grading? Good thing I was prepared. Little furball, I'll leave it to you. After saying this, Lu Chen finally could not hold on any longer and fell on his back. After who knew how much time had passed, when Lu Chen woke up, he found that little furball was using his little head to support his palm. Little furball, is he dead? Zhi. Why didn't I let you come out earlier? When Lu Chen heard the little furball blaming him, he forced a smile. That guy is too strong. Right now, cough, 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 you're not his opponent. I have to confirm that he's seriously injured before I let you out. Hearing that his boss had forced himself to check on the enemy because he was worried about his own safety, little furball sadly ran to Lu Chen's side and rubbed against Lu Chen's face. I really didn't think that the heavenly domain boss that I didn't take seriously would almost take my life. What a big surprise. I really can't be careless on this Jutian path. The appearance of the man in white seemed to be because of his special identity. As long as he did not compromise, his future path would be even more difficult. You want me to compromise? Dream on. Ouch, it hurts? Lu Chen's face was distorted from the pain. Little Green. Lu Chen summoned Little Green. Boss, you're heavily injured. Lu Yi's eyes were filled with tears. Her hands trembled as she checked on Lu Chen's condition. I know. Hurry up and take a look. I think I can still be saved. After saying his last wish, Lu Chen fainted again. Chapter 548. At night, Lu Chen woke up again. After a few hours of care from Lu Yi, Lu Chen's injuries had improved. His body's damage had reached 44%. Boss, I gave you a few pills. If you continue using them, the effect will be very small and you will develop a resistance to them. Lu Yi helped Lu Chen stand up. Why don't we rest here for a few more days? We'll talk about it later. I just checked. The system wants me to leave the dungeon, or else I'll fail the tower. Lu Chen looked around. HM? Where's that guy's corpse? Furball? The furry ball squeaked a few times, which startled Lu Chen. It ran away after eating half of it? A scene flashed across Lu Chen's mind. A person who was bitten to death by furball ran away. This? Did you eat it horizontally or vertically? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Furball said that it wasn't particular when it ate. Lu Chen shook his head. Anyway, the scene must have been horrifying. That guy could still run away after being injured like that. What the hell is that? Lu Chen thought about it but couldn't think of anything. Forget it. He's not a real celestial domain boss anyway. We can go to the fourth heaven. He walked to the corpse of the origin of 7 sins and picked up the items. Obtained celestial armor, sinful monarch's robe. Obtained dazzling gold weapon, 7-star fire orb, firearm. Obtained dazzling gold item, Tai Shuo, Mount Treasure. Obtained dark gold. This guy was killed by the man in white, so Lu Chen didn't get any upgrade materials and wouldn't trigger the greed effect. In short, it was a loss. Damn it. Don't let me meet that guy again. Otherwise, I'll make him compensate me. Lu Chen directly gave the equipment to Wuji Sword to devour, leaving only the Mount Treasure. Tai Shuo didn't add any attributes to Lu Chen. It also didn't intimidate other mounts like the 9-winged. Sometimes, it could even provide decent AoE attacks. However, as a mount of the same level, Tai Shuo's speed was much faster than 9-winged. At the same time, Lu Chen was shocked speechless for a long time by the only characteristic of the Cosmos Shuttle. Item type. Cacheable item, what the fuck? Lu Chen exclaimed. Item extraction? If I were to bring this thing into the real world, wouldn't it cause an uproar? However, although the taisuo could be extracted, it didn't say how to extract it or what materials were needed. In the first 3 heavens, other than the 100 points attribute extraction scroll, there were no other items related to extraction. Maybe I'll have to go to the 4th heaven. Let's see what it looks like first. After summoning the taishuo, a huge shuttle-shaped object floated in the air. It looked a bit like a tetrahedron weapon. It was about 5 or 6 meters long, which wasn't very big. Streamlined design. There's no cockpit or anything. Can this thing really be used after it's extracted? Generally speaking, the taishuo was much worse than the 9-winged, but perhaps because of its attributes, it had also become a dazzling gold mount. Putting away the taishuo, Lu Chen walked to the 4th heaven. I'm going to the 4th heaven. Lu Chen took a deep breath. 1 heavens, 1 heaven. I wonder what the 4th heaven looks like. Let's go. After saying that, Lu Chen stepped into the entrance. In the Wood Prefecture, Lu Chen stayed in his room all day and rarely went out. Occasionally, the cowherd would come to see him, but every time he came in, he would always close the door. Little originator, do you want to go to the dungeon with me? It's too boring for you to stay here alone. The cowherd patted little originator on the shoulder. In fact, this solipsistic was really no different from the real thing. It could even transform into a solipsistic god 6 or demon 6. Little originator couldn't speak and had little self-awareness. In fact, it was just a special puppet. However, to the cowherd's surprise, he only came to make sure that little originator was fine. After all the major races now believed that little originator was the solipsistic. Because of this, no one dared to act rashly. However, little originator, who had never spoken, actually spoke today. Little originator struggled to speak and stammered. However, these few simple words still made the cowherd widen his eyes and look at little originator in shock. Little originator, you spoke? Did the solipsistic speak through you? Little originator shook its head. Little originator wants to become stronger. Little originator wants to find boss. The cowherd suddenly fell silent. In order to stabilize the situation, that stinky brat had left little originator. After all, little originator could transform into a solipsistic, so no one would suspect it. However, little originator had spoken today. Little originator wanted to continue following Lu Chen. It wanted to become stronger and go to the 4th layer of heaven to find them. The cowherd patted little originator's shoulder. Little originator, you have always been strong. It's just that we have neglected your strength and your feelings. I believe that your boss will not leave you behind unless he has no other choice. Little originator knows, the cowherd nodded. It's rare for you to be so sensible. Well, although this old man is old and I'm not sure if I can take you to the 4th layer of heaven, but I'll try my best. We will all become stronger. After a moment of dizziness, Lu Chen finally set foot on the 4th layer of heaven. He raised his head blankly and looked at his surroundings. This was a desert. There were no other newbies, no team like the Mountain of Strength waiting for him. He was all alone in the sandstorm. What's going on? Is the novice village too lazy to make one? Lu Chen shook his head. At least give me a prompt. The system is silent. He was still injured and in a bad state. Little Green needed materials to refine elixirs. Looking at the barren surroundings, it did not seem like a place where he could gather herbs. Rhubarb. Lu Chen called out rhubarb. Do you know this place? Rhubarb shook its head. There's a city ahead. Lu Chen frowned. Well, let's go to the city to avoid the sandstorm. The sandstorm is too fierce. I can't even open my eyes. In the sandstorm, Lu Chen and his dog trudged against the wind. After walking for an hour, the sky darkened. Lu Chen was already a little tired. Coincidentally, there was a ruin in front of them. The broken bricks could block some of the sandstorm. Lu Chen brought rhubarb inside to rest. The first 3 layers of heaven were green mountains and clear waters. Why is the 4th layer of heaven like this? Lu Chen hid behind a broken wall and leaned against rhubarb. cold and hungry. Lu Chen shivered. I never felt cold before, but now I feel so strong. Lu Chen took out 2 pieces of barbecued meat and gave one to Rhubarb. This was prepared by chasing Cloud. It could be used to sate his hunger. After eating something, he felt a little better. Lu Chen looked up. The sky was gray, and sand was everywhere, covering the sky and the sun. Rhubarb circled around him a few times and barked at Lu Chen. What, this is the city? Lu Chen stared with his eyes wide open. He thought it was the kind of city that would be overcrowded. In the end, the city was already in ruins. Damn, what the hell is the 4th layer of heaven? Lu Chen shook his head in confusion. Can there be living people in this place? Chapter 549. Lu Yi used the remaining materials to refine some pills. Although she couldn't completely heal Lu Chen's injuries, she was able to control the worsening of his injuries. At the same time, she was also able to heal Lu Chen's injuries to a small extent. Lu Chen's situation wasn't too bad. Of course, that was on the premise that Lu Chen didn't casually fight with others. When Lu Chen first arrived at the 4th heaven, he didn't even have the time to figure out what the 4th heaven was like. He could already feel the huge difference between the 4th heaven and the previous heaven domain. He would feel cold, hungry, and thirsty. Even the feeling caused by the external environment is much more obvious than before. It's no different from the real world. If it's a battle, it should be easier to affect the real world. Having just arrived at the 4th heaven, although he didn't see anyone for the time being, Lu Chen didn't dare to casually go offline to rest. Taking advantage of the night when the wind and sand gradually subsided, Lu Chen asked Lu Yi for some leftover medicinal dregs. He scraped some sparks from the fire Qilin's body and started a bonfire. At night, he leaned against Rhubarb and Furball and fell asleep in a daze. Hurry up and let me meet someone. Lu Chen made a wish before he went to sleep. The next morning, before the wind and sand started blowing, Lu Chen woke up early and continued on his journey with Rhubarb and Furball. Although he said he was rushing, Lu Chen didn't even know where to go. He could only keep walking in one direction. After walking for an entire morning, Lu Chen finally saw the forest in front of him. After walking for half a day through the forest, when Lu Chen saw the lit torches in front of him in the evening, he almost cried tears of joy. There's finally someone. After all, this was the 4th heaven. Lu Chen temporarily recalled Rhubarb and Furball and entered the town in front of him alone. There were quite a lot of people in the town. They wore all kinds of equipment and came and went. They're all humans? But then again, Lu Chen was still randomly assigned to the human camp from the 2nd celestial layer to the 3rd celestial layer. Looking at it this way, it was normal for Lu Chen to be born near the human camp. After interacting with a large number of humans in different regions in the 3 heavens, Lu Chen now felt very close to those strange-looking humans. Lu Chen found several inns in succession, but they were all fully booked. He did not know why there were so many people in such an unremarkable town. With great difficulty, Lu Chen finally found an inconspicuous inn and settled down. The guest room was on the 2nd floor. After Lu Chen rested, he leaned against the window and looked out. The window was made of paper wood, the kind that was propped up outwards. It had an antique feel to it. This town was a little like a small town in ancient times. They were all brick bungalows with 3 to 4 floors. The back of the town was against a large mountain. The area was not too big. Other than the players with all kinds of equipment on the streets, there were also some people wearing gray robes. They were all walking towards the mountain in 2s and 3s. At this moment, the waiter opened the door and brought in hot water and food. The feeling of the 4th celestial layer was not much different from the real world. These feelings directly affected the health of the body. Lu Chen ordered a lot of food the moment he arrived. Sir, looking at your travel-worn appearance, you must have just reached the 4th celestial layer. The waiter was busy serving the food and chatting with him. Yes, are you an NPC or a player? Lu Chen could not help but ask. There are no NPCs now. I'm a player. I'm working here to make money. I'm also waiting for the immortal fate. The person laughed. If I don't do anything and just stay here, the cost will be too high. Lu Chen sat in front of the table. Little brother, if you're free, what is the immortal fate that you mentioned? The person was quite enthusiastic. We're all humans. What's there to hide? The immortal fate. Look, it's that mountain. That's the only sect nearby, the celestial sect. In the fourth celestial layer, the celestial sect controls almost all the dungeons and training areas. Only by entering the celestial sect can you exchange for the attribute extraction scroll and item extraction scroll. The little brother said, "You must have come from the barren land. You should have seen the situation there. It's a barren land. There's nothing there. Other than the celestial sect, it's all like that outside." Lu Chen was stunned. Celestial sect? Little brother, sit down and eat with me. I can't eat so much by myself. There aren't any customers right now. Don't be so polite. The person sat down after being polite. Lu Chen personally poured him a pot of wine. Lu Chen ordered this the moment he saw it. He did not know how the wine in the fourth celestial layer tasted, so now was a good time to present it to Buddha. After drinking the wine, the little brother became more talkative. "Yes, brother. I like your temper. Then I'll tell you more. Those who can come to the fourth celestial layer are all experts in the third celestial layer. But when you come to the fourth celestial layer, you will realize that the third celestial layer is only the most basic test for the major sects in the fourth celestial layer to select disciples. If you can't even reach the fourth celestial layer, you don't have the qualifications to become a disciple of any sect." Lu Chen frowned. Then what about the fourth celestial layer's racial conflicts? More intense, more direct. The little brother answered very briefly. The army in the fourth celestial layer is not called an army. It's called the Immortal Army. It's formed by selecting outstanding disciples from the various major sections. Let's put it this way. The Immortal Army on the front lines is fighting almost every day. The little brother took a sip of wine. "You little brat, you have a lot of gold coins. I usually can't bear to drink this kind of feminine fragrance." "Oh right. In the fourth celestial layer, there are no longer thousands of races. There are a total of 9 major races. Many races with blood relations eventually merged under the high intensity of the confrontation. Then does the human race have allies? Yes, the former nature elves and... I'm not too sure. You can only know the exact allies in the Immortal Army." Lu Chen was shocked. In the third celestial layer, the nature elves seemed to have many people who wanted to kill him. But in the fourth celestial layer, they actually became allies. Speaking of which, to be able to put aside the racial conflicts and become allies, it seemed that the battle for the Immortal Army was extremely cruel. "Brother, don't ask about the Immortal Army. The Immortal Army is too far away. Let's talk about the sections." Lu Chen nodded. The little brother was right. "Little brother, I see those people wearing gray robes. Are they disciples of the Immortal Pinnacle sect?" "You can say so. But they are only outer sect disciples. They often go down the mountain to buy some supplies. We can't see the real disciples of the Immortal Pinnacle sect." Lu Chen nodded. It seemed that the resources of the fourth celestial layer were monopolized by the Immortal sect. But the Immortal sect also provided manpower for the Immortal Army. If they rashly snatched the resources, it might affect the human race's battle at the front line. In the past, Lu Chen would snatch whatever resources he saw in the Jyotian. After all, it was a game. But from the third celestial layer onwards, Lu Chen understood a principle. From the third celestial layer onwards, if he had nothing to do and massacred a city, he might really kill a group of people. That would be killing the original bodies of those people. After all, they were from the same race. Lu Chen felt that it was better to keep a low profile. "Then little brother, how can I enter the Immortal sect?" "They have an entrance test. There is one every week. The next test will be in 4 or 5 days." Lu Chen nodded. The time was just right. He could rest here for a while to recover. The little brother drank another cup of wine. "Hey brother, do you have a very strange feeling?" "En? What feeling?" The little brother laughed. "So, the legendary immortal cultivation is actually in the Jyotian. Entering the Immortal sect is the first step to becoming an immortal. Rogue immortals, TSK. Those super strong people that I didn't even dare to think about before all started here. Although the fourth celestial layer is extremely dangerous, it also makes one's blood boil. Chapter 550. With a big tree as your back, Extreme Immortal Town had already developed to some extent. There were all kinds of shops here, selling herbs, refining tools, refining talismans, etc. Living in the town was quite comfortable. During the day, Lu Chen would go out to buy some herbs. The disciples of the Extreme Immortal sect would exchange some rare herbs for low-grade ones, which Lu Chen bought. When he had nothing to do, he would walk around. There were a few arenas and training grounds here. Usually, this was the most lively place in the town. People would spar here to prepare for the Extreme Immortal sect's disciple recruitment. Lu Chen hadn't earned money in a long time. He spent it quickly, mainly to buy herbs for Louis to refine pills. Sometimes, he would buy new weapons without hesitation. Louis needed to refine pills to increase her alchemy level. Harry Ball needed pills. Limitless Sword needed equipment. Lu Chen, who was a tycoon, couldn't afford to feed these guys. In less than 2 days, Lu Chen moved from the sky room to the earth room. Damn, I only have 2,000 gold left. My 200 million gold. Fortunately, under Louis's care, Lu Chen finally recovered. 1 day later, the town's largest arena was filled with people. The shops were closed early, and all the pedestrians gathered near the arena. From afar, he could see dozens of people coming down from the Extreme Immortal Mountain. These people were wearing white robes. 4 or 5 of them were wearing robes with golden edges. Their status was very high. The leader was wearing a purple robe with golden edges. From afar, he raised his hands and the dozens of people were already in the open space in front of the arena. Lu Chen frowned. What kind of teleportation skill is this? Mass teleportation. It's quite strong. Lu Chen noticed that these people seemed to be using different weapons. There were sabers, swords, spears, staffs, but there were also crystal balls, talismans, firearms. Perhaps the so-called immortal cultivation in the 9 heavens was not exactly the same as the immortal cultivation, in Lu Chen's impression. The various professions of Jiutian seemed to have many possibilities in the later stages of development, and they were probably not weak. The purple-robed middle-aged man took a step forward and said in a loud voice, "Today is the day that the Extreme Immortal sect is recruiting disciples. Since there are a lot of people here today and we don't have much time, let's not waste any more words. As usual, we'll judge based on the results of the test." After saying that, the man took out a strange stone from his backpack and had his disciples move it onto the ring. If you want to take the test, you can come up and take the test. Remember, use your strongest attack in your strongest state. Don't think that a 3rd heavenly layer is so powerful. If you want to conserve your strength here, don't blame me for not warning you if you can't enter the Celestial Pinnacle sect because the test results don't reflect your strength correctly. After saying this, that person crossed his arms and didn't say anything else. Lu Chen was a little nervous now. He knew that Jiutian was a Xianxia game, but this was the first time he had such a clear feeling. Speaking of which, did Mu Xian and the people in the mountains, including Venerable Celestial Ling Tian, who played chess with heaven and left behind the Heavenly Might chess game, start from here? He didn't know what that stone was testing, but Lu Chen naturally wouldn't be the first to go up. He wanted to see what others were testing first. Soon someone went up. The person who went up was an alien. He cupped his fists and bowed to the people of the Celestial Pinnacle sect. "Greetings, seniors of the Celestial Pinnacle sect. I entered the 4th heavenly layer 5 years ago and am now a 3rd heavenly layer." The people of the Celestial Pinnacle sect nodded to him, indicating that he could begin. Then, that person turned to face the testing stone. Beast King Possession. Beast Blood Evolution. King of Beasts, Wild Strength. Battle Roar. Wild Beast Barrier. Lu Chen's eyes widened. That guy faced the stone and didn't even make a move. Instead, he gave himself a bunch of buffs. He even used his barrier. "Don't tell me he added all the buffs he could," Lu Chen said in shock. Hearing Lu Chen's words, the guy in front turned around and looked at Lu Chen in surprise. This person was the delivery guy. Brother, it's you. The delivery guy pulled Luchan forward. Of course he would add all the buffs he could. Do you think it's easy to enter the Celestial Pinnacle sect? There are more than 20,000 people here for the testing. Let me tell you, in the end, no more than 20 people will be selected. Moreover, most of them are outer sect disciples. I've been here for 13 years, and I've never heard of anyone entering the inner sect directly. You've been here for 13 years? Yes. Otherwise, would I be so poor that I have to work as a waiter? Luchan thought about it and felt that it made sense. He didn't have much money left, but he could still stay in an earth room for a few months. At this moment, the guy in charge of the testing made his move. Stampede of beasts, beast tide. With a boom, that person threw nearly 100 punches. The entire stage rumbled, and the ground trembled slightly. This damage should be very good. The testing stone's result is 200,000 damage per attack. 100 punches would be 20 million damage. Luchan nodded. That guy was very strong. 20 million damage per 10 seconds. Even if he was in his best state and had a barrier, this kind of damage was rare among Stage 3 experts. Not long after, the testing stone gave the result. Total damage, 98 million physical damage. Additional debuff, heavy injury, casting delay, weakened battle pet. Testing result, failed. This testing stone was quite powerful. It could measure both damage and debuff. Luchan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. 20 million damage was not passed? The Celestial Pinnacle sect's requirements were too high. The second person to go on stage didn't even deal as much damage as the Stampede of Beasts. Naturally, he was eliminated. Luchan was really curious. He asked the waiter, "Hey brother, how much damage does it take to pass?" The waiter frowned and shook his head. The sigh. Actually, 20 million damage is enough to make you an outer disciple in the past. I heard that recently, the Celestial Pinnacle sect sent a few batches of disciples to the Immortal Army. Their performance was barely satisfactory. The Celestial Pinnacle sect was severely scolded by the Immortal Army's leader several times. In a fit of anger, the sect leader requested to raise the entry requirements. Now it seems that with 20 million damage per 10 seconds and 3 debuffs, you won't even be able to become an outer disciple. It's really difficult to enter the Celestial Pinnacle sect now. Luchan was a little depressed. Why was he randomly assigned to such a sect? How much damage did it take to successfully enter the Celestial Pinnacle sect? Brother, remember to use this kind of multi-attack skill. They only look at the total damage, not the individual damage. Deal as much damage as you can in 10 seconds. Don't hold back. In the morning, the strongest expert dealt 28 million damage in 10 seconds, but he was still eliminated. The group of people who were originally eager to give it a try could only shake their heads after confirming the new requirements of the Celestial Pinnacle sect. The waiter had a long face. I've been enduring hardships for 13 years, using all my money to buy pills to increase my attributes. I originally thought that I would definitely pass this time, but now, the Celestial Pinnacle sect is really too much. 28 million damage, and I can't even become an outer disciple? Sigh, could it be that I really don't have the fate to become an immortal? Luchan shook his head. He couldn't help with this matter. It had been a long time since someone went up on stage. Luchan knew that he couldn't delay any longer. The fourth heaven wasn't his destination. He wanted to go to a higher heaven domain, so he had to enter the Celestial Pinnacle sect. Is there anyone else who wants to take the test? A disciple of the Celestial Pinnacle sect walked out and asked the crowd. There was a lot of discussion below the stage. 2,800 damage. This kind of damage was eliminated. Does the Celestial Pinnacle sect think of themselves as a top sect? I heard that the Celestial Pinnacle sect is running low on resources and doesn't want to recruit new people. I don't know if they're purposely making things difficult for us. Shoo, don't talk nonsense. Their people are still here. Seeing that there was only one round of people below, the Celestial Pinnacle sect disciple shook his head. As expected, the good ones have already entered the sect. As for the rest, sigh. At this moment, someone squeezed out from the crowd. "Let me try." Everyone looked over and saw a man in red clothes step onto the stage. Lu Chen shook his head as he walked. Lu Chen didn't want to join any sect. Since he couldn't avoid this step, then becoming an outer disciple shouldn't be a bad choice. But the problem was that he didn't even know the standards. How much damage should he deal? Chapter 551. Lu Chen wondered if 30 million was enough. If he was on the safe side, 40 million should be enough. When he had just reached the third layer of heaven, Lu Chen's physical attack was about 300,000. But now, his level was full and Limitless Sword had devoured a lot of equipment. Now, without any buffs, Lu Chen's physical attack had reached 900,000 plus. He was only one step away from reaching 1,000,000. When the time came, he would activate rapid attack and flash shot and hit 40 punches. When the people from the Immortal Peak sect saw the guy on stage, they took 2 steps back. Lu Chen was about to hit the testing stone when he was stopped by someone. "Kid, don't you know the rules? Introduce yourself first." Lu Chen then remembered that the others had introduced themselves before the test. He turned to look at the rostrum. "Greetings to the seniors of the Immortal Peak sect. I have been in the 4th layer of heaven for 6 days. My military rank is militia." Someone beside him laughed. "Militia? Hey, don't talk nonsense. We are all from the 3rd layer of heaven. Militia doesn't even have the qualifications to enter Tong Tian Tower." Lu Chen said, "I was jointly recommended by a 2-star power to participate in the tournament, and then I just happened to follow a very strong team." Lu Chen casually made up a reason. "Your luck is so good. The 3rd layer of heaven even recommends militia? No wonder there haven't been any newcomers to the 4th layer of heaven recently. Kid, don't you know your own strength? Don't tell me you took some attack-increasing medicine and wanted to bluff your way through. Let me tell you, the testing stone can measure the proportion of your strength. Once it exceeds 100%, you will be disqualified forever." Lu Chen's eyes widened. Damn, the 4th layer of heaven's testing stone was so advanced? It could even measure the proportion of strength. Then wouldn't his plan to adjust the proportion of strength be useless? The purple-robed man said faintly, "Su Sheng, don't waste time. Let him test quickly. After he is done, he still has to go back." "Yes, Martial Uncle. Hey kid, hurry up and test. Don't waste our time." Lu Chen could only brace himself and test. War God Possession, Demon Transformation, Place of Death, Dragon Blood Boiling. While other players would toss out a bunch of amplification skills at the start of the battle, Lu Chen followed suit and used 4 amplification skills. With the addition of these 4 skills and the Madness passive, Lu Chen's current physical attack had soared to 1,600,000. This state was clearly much weaker than Lu Chen's strongest state. He still hadn't activated the 3 lives reincarnation, and he hadn't used his strongest 6 transformations yet. Even so, Lu Chen's damage was still frightening. Because Everlasting Sword had swallowed a lot of new equipment, Lu Chen's critical damage had increased by quite a bit. His double critical strike actually dealt about 4 times the damage, while a triple critical strike was about 6 times the damage. If it was a quintuple critical strike, it would be even more exaggerated, equivalent to 15 times the damage. A fierce tiger descends the mountain with 10 physical attacks and 100% critical strike. Even if it was the lowest double critical strike, it would definitely exceed 64 million. However, the problem was that it was impossible for all his attacks to be double critical strike. The chances of a triple or quadruple critical strike were not low. If there were a few critical strikes, it was possible for it to exceed 100 million. Most importantly, a fierce tiger descends the mountain did not even last a second. 40 to 50 million was Lu Chen's DPS, not the test results. Could it be that he had to stand there stupidly for the remaining 9 seconds? How annoying. He couldn't adjust the ratio of his strength. What if the damage was too high? It seemed that he could only turn off his combo attack talent and use normal attacks to slowly complete the 10 seconds. After thinking it through, Lu Chen began to punch. With one punch, there was a loud bang. The entire testing stone flew back more than a meter, and a fragment fell from the stone. 31 million, quintuple critical strike. Lu Chen almost collapsed. Quintuple critical strike after one punch? With a 1% chance, why was it so diligent? I've never seen it so diligent when fighting monsters. Looking at the fragment that fell from the stone, Lu Chen was terrified. What should he do? It had only been a second, and he had already lost 31 million. Unfortunately, the area around the ring, which had always been noisy, was now strangely quiet. The only sound that could be heard was the sound of the stone falling. But it was exceptionally clear. What the fuck? Wasn't this testing stone able to withstand tens of millions of damage? Why was it broken with one punch? Lu Chen guiltily glanced at the people from the extreme immortal sect. It wasn't just the people from the extreme immortal sect. 80% of the audience had the same expression. Everyone's mouths were wide open, and they could fit 2 eggs inside. I got 31 million in one punch? What the fuck is this? He broke the testing stone. Could it be that the testing stone was broken from the very beginning? The delivery boy's jaw almost hit his own foot. No way, this guy, 30 million damage in one punch? That's more damage than 100 punches. The testing stone could withstand a large amount of damage, but the difference was that while other people dealt 10 seconds of damage, Lu Chen only dealt one punch. The purple-robed man took a deep breath and calmed down with great difficulty. Don't get too excited. He was just lucky to deal a 5 times critical hit. Martial uncle, the highest I've seen is a 3 times critical hit. Where did a 5 times critical hit come from? Moreover, even if it was a 5 times critical hit, the damage would be 200%. His physical attack would be in the millions. The purple-robed man thought for a moment and quickly came up with an answer. It should be some kind of consummate skill. If I'm not wrong, this should be an extremely explosive single-target skill. Others can deal many punches, but he just combined them into a single attack to produce a shocking explosive power. As expected of their martial uncle, he was able to see the reason behind it with a single glance. Everyone was enlightened. Yes, I've also heard of this kind of skill. Some single-target skills that consume a lot of energy, but the total damage is actually very high. It's just that these consummate skills are actually very weak. The damage is high, but once the opponent dodges, then all the previous efforts will be wasted. So that's how it is. If it was me and I had 2 skills, one is a skill that can deal multiple attacks, and the other is that guy's skill, I would definitely choose the former. Not only does a large number of attacks have endless variations, but the attacks are also continuous, causing more negative effects. It's much more useful in actual combat than this kind of all-or-nothing skill. The nature of the gamble is too heavy. If he hits, he can instantly kill the opponent. If he doesn't, then he's dead. This kind of consummate skill is definitely good to look at but useless. I estimate that it's at most a heaven-level low-level skill. Junior brother, this kind of skill can't even reach heaven level. You guys should have seen his ultimate move. There was no change in the move. It was just like a normal attack. It was just a punch. Who do you think would stand there and let him hit them? This move can only hit the testing stone. If it was a real battle, I can play with him until he doesn't know north. At first glance, I was really shocked by him. But after listening to Martial Uncle and Senior Brother's analysis, I've also been enlightened. The more everyone thought about it, the more they thought so. Accumulating all the strength in his body to deal a fatal punch, but in the end, it was easily dodged. In actual combat, this kind of consummate skill was completely good to look at but useless. No wonder he dared to go up on stage. It turns out that he has a consummate skill to deal with our test. Tisich militia is militia. Without experiencing the baptism of war, they only learn some useless skills. But Martial Uncle, he's already reached our standard. You see, the purple-robed man shook his head. There are always people who take advantage of loopholes. But after all, the cutoff points were set by the sect master. If we don't recruit him, others will say that our extreme immortal sect is unfair. Sigh, this loophole, he really took advantage of it. Hey kid, don't fight anymore. You've already passed. Now you're already an outer disciple of our extreme immortal sect. After saying that, The purple-robed man didn't even look at Lu Chen. He waited for his disciple to take back the testing stone before leading everyone back to Extreme Immortal Mountain. Before leaving, the purple-robed man left behind a sentence. Disciples of Extreme Immortal Sect have to go to the battlefield. Although your consummate skills damage is high, it's useless. Using this kind of opportunistic method to enter Extreme Immortal Sect will only reap what you sow. You're on your own. Go back to Extreme Immortal Sect and report yourself. Lu Chen finally let out a sigh of relief. In any case, he had entered Extreme Immortal Sect. But that guy said something about consummate skill or consummate skill. When did I use a skill? Chapter 552. The group of people followed the purple-robed man and left, leaving only Lu Chen behind. The purple-robed man's words gave everyone a new understanding of Lu Chen's ultimate move, and it wasn't as amazing as before. So he entered the Immortal Apex sect through trickery. That's a pretty good idea. Let's go to the bookstore and see if there are any similar techniques. It's okay if the move is stupid as long as it does damage. Let's go to the bookstore. The surrounding audience dispersed in a hubbub. Only the delivery boy stayed there and quickly ran to Lu Chen. Bro, ignore them. They don't know shit. The delivery boy said mysteriously. This is called strategy. They're all here to enter the Immortal Apex sect. As long as they can enter, why can't they use this technique? Right, bro? Lu Chen had a feeling of speechlessness. That was just a normal attack. Whatever, they could say whatever they wanted. In any case, Lu Chen's purpose in going to the Immortal Apex sect was to clear an instance and exchange for exchange scrolls. Bro, you're a member of the Immortal Apex sect from now on. If you have anything good to sell, remember to tell me. I've been outside for 13 years and haven't entered the sect yet. Lu Chen smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Don't be discouraged. If I have anything I need to exchange, I'll come to you. Okay, thank you, bro. You should hurry back. They seem to be looking down on you and won't take you with them. Just follow this path and go to the registration area first. You can stay on the Immortal Apex Mountain in the future. Lu Chen nodded. Okay, see you later. Lu Chen walked up the mountain path and soon saw some buildings. No one stopped him, so he went to register and receive the beginner's resources. Lu Chen wanted to continue walking up, but he was stopped by the resource officer. Kid, don't go up. Outer sect disciples can't enter the inner mountain. Go to the residential area and familiarize yourself with your nest. Come back tomorrow to do your daily mission. Lu Chen turned around and walked towards the dormitory area. The Celestial Extremity Mountain covered a vast area. Even an outer disciple like Lu Chen had his own wooden house. It was much better than the City of Exiles. Lu Chen's house was simply furnished with a bed, a wardrobe, a table, and a chair. Opening the newcomer's package, there were bedding, bowls, chopsticks, 2 basins, and 3 sets of coarse gray robes. This kind of clothing was obviously made by a low-level tailor. It didn't have any attributes, but in the Apex Immortal Sect, everyone had to wear the sect uniform. Only when they went out for a long time could they wear their own clothing. There was also a token inside the bag. It was the token of a disciple of the Extreme Immortal Sect. Lu Chen saw that some of the disciples had it hanging on their waists. This should be my ID card. Lu Chen repeatedly looked at his wooden plaque, which had the words Outer Sect written on it. Other than that, there was also a map and a booklet in the package. Obtained Celestial Extremity Mountain Map. Synchronizing Personal Map. In the 4th heaven, the use of the system was getting smaller and smaller. Fortunately, the map function could still be used. The system quickly loaded the Celestial Extremity Mountain Map into his personal map. Zooming in on the map, Lu Chen found that other than some buildings, there were also about 50 dungeons marked on the map. Each dungeon was numbered, and each dungeon had restrictions. There was no identity requirement to enter a dungeon. In theory, outer disciples could enter any dungeon, but each dungeon required a different sect contribution point. Dungeons 41 to 50 required 1 contribution point, dungeons 31 to 40 required 2 contribution points, and so on. In the inner mountains, there was a treasure exchange center. Lu Chen guessed that rare items such as attributes and items could be exchanged there. The booklet recorded the rules of the Apex Immortal sect. Fighting and martial arts were allowed here, but everyone had to actively contribute to the sect's development. There was also a special rule that forbade relationships in the sect. What the hell do you mean by forbade relationships? Lu Chen shook his head. The most important thing for the Apex Immortal sect was to increase the strength of the disciples and replenish the blood of the immortal army. Therefore, most of the booklet was about cultivation requirements. Although the Apex Immortal sect didn't interfere with the disciples' cultivation arrangements, they had to cultivate at least 8 hours a day. Cultivation methods included theory classes, training in the martial arts field, challenging dungeons, cultivating spiritual power in the spiritual power cultivation area, and so on. These areas all had a check-in system, and everyone's cultivation time was strictly limited. Outer disciples had to complete at least one daily task every day, which was to do odd jobs and so on. This was the most stable way to earn contribution points. In addition, the sect regularly held various competitions, including internal competitions and friendly competitions with other sections. Those who won would receive a lot of contribution points. The rewards for internal competitions were less, but the rewards for representing the Apex Immortal sect against other sects were usually very generous. The most important part was naturally the Immortal Army selection. The Immortal Army selection will be held once every 3 months. From today onwards, the rules of the Immortal Army selection will be adjusted. The selection method will be changed from internal selection to disciples of the Immortal Army selection. Disciples who win will be able to enter the Immortal Army selection. Lu Chen frowned slightly. He had heard that the disciples sent by the Apex Immortal sect didn't perform well recently. This was probably the reason why the rules were changed. The sect master's meaning was probably, "Fine, if you think the people I chose aren't good enough, then you can choose yourselves." The sect master of the Apex Immortal sect is also hot-tempered. Lu Chen smiled slightly. After gaining a general understanding of the Apex Immortal sect, Lu Chen washed up and went to bed. Night fell. Lying on the wooden bed, Lu Chen looked at the moon through the wooden window. I really didn't expect that I would actually come here to cultivate. It feels like I've really entered a cultivation sect. But the cultivation here should be different from the TV shows I've seen before. There were dungeons, there was extraction, there was damage, there was critical hit, there were debuffs and buffs, there were 9 professions. The so-called immortal cultivation of the 9 heavens was indeed different from the immortal cultivation that Lu Chen knew before. The extraction of 4th heaven should be far more than 100 points. Then I won't be in a hurry to go to 5th heaven. I'll fill up my stats first. It's best to extract Taishua. I wonder how it feels to use Taishua in real life. The Disciples' Handbook says that the first 7 days don't cost any guild contributions, but after that, it costs 1 guild contribution per day. So I have to get used to the Apex Immortal sect as soon as possible. Lu Chen had been in 4th heaven for a week. Although he still didn't know much about 4th heaven and had only seen the tip of the iceberg, he was gradually starting to get on the right track. Every time he reached a new heaven, it was a new adventure that he had to explore on his own. Lu Chen quite liked this feeling. His cultivation journey had officially begun. Lu Chen was a little excited. Mu Xian, mountain people, what heaven were you guys in before? I've just entered a cultivation sect, and you guys are already loose immortals. I didn't have any concept of cultivation levels before, but now I know a little, and I can't find you guys anymore. In a daze, Lu Chen made a wish. Causing trouble every day is definitely not my intention. I also want to rest. From today onwards, I, Lu Chen, will definitely not cause trouble or stand out. I'll just be an ordinary outer sect disciple. I'll grind dungeons, trade for items, and do missions. I'll just be a comfortable and relaxed student. I'm such a good person who stands aloof from worldly affairs. God bless me. Please let my wish come true. Just as Lu Chen was about to fall asleep, his door was kicked open. You're 31 million with a single punch? Kid, we trained hard every day and spent a lot of money to enter the Apex Immortal sect. You actually used such an opportunistic method to sneak in? 31 million? You have the face to use such a flashy skill? Kid, from now on, you have to help us complete our daily missions. Otherwise, we'll beat you up every day until even your parents won't recognize you. Lu Chen opened his eyes slightly. There were more than 10 fierce-looking people at the door. He felt like they were about to rush in and beat him up. Lu Chen frowned and shook his head. My wish has been shattered a little too quickly. Chapter 553. After recovering from his serious injuries, Lu Chen fought his way from the second celestial layer all the way to the fourth celestial layer. Lu Chen really planned to stop for a while and live a leisurely life. However, reality was always so cruel. He didn't look for trouble, but this time, trouble came looking for him. The dozen or so outer sect disciples heard about Lu Chen's test process from somewhere and were quite dissatisfied with his opportunistic way of entering the immortal sect. Lu Chen sat up and frowned as he looked at the dozen or so people. I say, are you guys really full of righteousness, or are you guys just looking for a newcomer to do things for you? Kid, you don't even call me senior brother. I think you're really arrogant. Looking at your sloppy appearance, I can tell that you're a troublemaker. We've seen a lot of newcomers like you. Which one of them isn't arrogant when they first arrive? Kid, remember this is the fourth heaven. Don't talk nonsense with him. Look at his unconvinced face. Beat him until he's convinced. 31 million? All right, your grandpa wants to experience your secret art. Come, let's see if you can even touch a strand of grandpa's hair. Lu Chen sighed. It seemed like these people were used to bullying others. But speaking of which, could he let others do the daily missions? If that was the case, he seemed to have found some decent migrant workers. Go, beat him to death. The group of people was about to swarm up when Lu Chen jumped out of the window. So it's a coward. Unfortunately, you want to escape from Grandpa's hands? Dream on. Lightning speed. 1,000 miles journey. Everyone revealed their identities and quickly caught up with Lu Chen. Lu Chen stopped in front of a remote forest. Seeing that the dozen or so people were about to catch up, Lu Chen sneered. Splitting Mount Hua. With a boom, the people in the outer sect area who were still sleeping were awakened by the loud noise. Is Big Brother Wrist educating newcomers again? I wonder which unlucky person is going to work for free again. Brother Wrist and his gang have earned quite a lot of sect contributions with this. Sigh, it's better not to meddle in other people's business. We can't afford to offend them. The extreme immortal sect didn't forbid disciples from fighting. As long as they didn't use physical damage skills, no one would care. This was exactly what Lu Chen wanted. Originally, the 9 dragon pillars of heavenly punishment's mountain-splitting strike could ignore all movement skills below the heaven rank. These people's movement skills were directly crippled. In addition, they did not expect that guy to turn around and use the club. The group of people were hit by the club. The tree wants to be still, but the wind won't stop. Sighed. Lu Chen shook his head. You want to beat me to death? Sure, you like to fight with more people, right? Demon Doppelganger. Demon Kings will refresh. Demon Doppelganger. More than 30 doppelgangers swarmed toward the group of people. Adjust the ratio with force 1 to. Give him a good beating. With 3 or 4 doppelgangers against one person and 5 consecutive attacks, these people would not be able to wake up. As Lu Chen had adjusted the ratio of force, the doppelganger's damage wasn't too high. Each attack only dealt a few tens of thousands of damage. This way, the battle that could have been finished in a few seconds suddenly became a battle of attrition. It hurts. Stop, I'll kill you when I wake up. Why is there no end to the doppelganger passive effect? Despicable, you actually lowered the ratio of force on purpose to torture us. You're lying. 1/10 of the force can't cause such high damage. My defense is very good. Lu Chen shook his head. To be able to wake up from the continuous attacks of 3 doppelgangers, the chances were very, very low. In addition, Lu Chen's main body was still squatting at the side, so they couldn't wake up from the stun. This group of people had around 10 million HP. As a human, this amount of HP was not bad. Half an hour later, Bro Wrist and the others were lying on the ground, wailing. Lu Chen didn't use any physical damage skills, but this kind of long-term punishment with a pain system was enough for them to endure. One of the brawny men was rolling on the ground and wailing while cursing, "Don't your doppelgangers have a cooldown? Why do you keep being stunned? Why do you keep being stunned? If you give me a chance, I'll make sure you regret it. How dare you touch me, kid, remember this. If you don't kill me today, I'll kill you tomorrow." At this moment, Lu Chen walked in front of him with a strangely shaped black and white double sword. Without saying anything, he raised his sword and cut off the man's arms. "You really don't want face. I only wanted to teach you a lesson, but you better watch your mouth. Say one more word and I'll kill you. Do you believe me?" The wailing around them suddenly quieted down. The others looked at the young man in shock. At first, they thought he was easy to bully, but now they realized that they were wrong, very wrong. This guy's cruelty was 10 times or even 100 times worse than theirs. Not only did he beat him up for half an hour, he also cut off Bro Wrist's arms without saying anything. He didn't even ask if Bro Wrist had a backer. He didn't even ask for Bro Wrist's name. This was too crazy. Since Bro Wrist's arms were cut off, the others didn't dare to make a sound. They were afraid of attracting the attention of this fiend, so they could only endure the pain. Even Bro Wrist wasn't as weak as before. He displayed amazing perseverance and didn't make a sound even after his arms were cut off. He didn't dare to make a sound. That guy said that if he made another sound, he would kill him. If it was someone else, he might not believe it, but he had to believe it now. This guy was a madman. He directly ignored the rules of Ultimate Immortal Sect and heavily injured his body. Lu Chen sat on Bro Wrist's stomach while Bro Wrist lay on the ground, not daring to move. Lu Chen kept his limitless sword and said faintly, "The few of you, come over here. Big brother, we have eyes but failed to recognize MT Tai. We don't dare anymore. Please, don't cripple our bodies. If our bodies are heavily injured, we won't even be able to do our daily missions and will be expelled soon. Yes, big brother. We were wrong. Please let us go." Lu Chen frowned and looked at Bro Wrist who was under his butt. Bro Wrist cried when Lu Chen looked at him. "Whoa, you don't play by the rules. You said that you can't use skills that injure the body." Lu Chen frowned. "Why are you crying? It's just 2 arms. I don't believe that a bully like you doesn't have any savings. Just change it to a body regeneration pill and you'll be fine. All of you, come over here. Whoever dares to make excuses, I'll turn you into human rods." The moment the human rods came out, those 10 people were so scared that their faces were as white as ghosts under the moonlight. They scrambled and crawled in front of Lu Chen. "Big brother, don't cut, we really don't dare anymore." Lu Chen coldly snorted, "I just came here and I already met you guys who bully the weak and fear the strong. I still want to have a few days of peace. How about this? From tomorrow onwards, you guys will help me complete the daily missions I accept. I will accept 60 missions a day. Each of you will help me complete 4 of them." 60? Big brother, this isn't good. Isn't this too much of a bully? "Yes, big brother. We are looking for newcomers to help us complete the mission. We can only do 1 mission a day. You want us to do 4 missions a day. You're even more ruthless than us. This is blatant exploitation." Lu Chen gave him a slap and snappily said, "Nonsense, of course I know this is exploitation. Whoever refuses to accept this, I will beat them up every time I see them. After beating them up during the day, I will help you to turn them into rods at night." Everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air. They used to be the bullies here, but what kind of ghost did they provoke today? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.